You remember the what? Now we're live, Posh.
Okay. When I see initializing, I've been conditioned since I was 8 or 9 years old. Remember from that Warhammer RTS game, like Dawn of War 1, where the servitor for the Space Marines says, initializing build protocols. That I can't escape that. It's been embedded deep into my brainstem.
Okay, we actually have some people. Can you guys see the comments? Can you see the comments, everybody?
Yes.
I have it expanded, so if I minimize, I might. Yes, I can.
Slowboy demands Crispy gets his wrench back.
I don't know what a wrench is and a spanner.
Yeah. So today, guys, we're back, and the plan is I keep saying we're like the dad who went out for smokes and never comes back. The plan is we are going to actually come back every Friday to visit you kids, and today we're going to be interviewing Woodfloor Alchemist, and we're going to just talk to him. And then we're going to react to a few things that Posh sent me that I haven't looked at them all yet myself. So hopefully there's no pornography.
Yes. Wait. Tamuid anseo freshen.
Oh, Posh is here as well. That's Irish for. Sorry, we're here as well. Tom Wid, we're here. We're here as well. Anyway, so yeah, Posh has been learning Irish. That's a new thing. I think he was drunk one night, texting me late at night, and then said that I'm going to learn Irish.
Yeah, I should have said anish, not freshen.
Oh, okay. Freshen
Gay.
is as well.
Yeah.
Oh, you were trying to say we're here now. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we're here now. Okay.
Still working on it. Like your writing system is a bit bonky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been learning for 3 weeks now, and I'm already eyeing up like my neighbor's cars.
Or the local Protestants' cars.
We don't have those.
Yeah.
They are dealt with before we even get to like a car situation.
So, what would we call you? Would we call you Woodfloor? Would we call you Alchemist?
You can call me Woodfloor Alchemist, Woodfloor, whatever. Tim.
Okay. Tim. Okay, we can go with Tim or Woody, whichever you prefer.
Woody, there you go.
Woody. Okay. So, Woody, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Things have been going well. So, have you been preparing something to talk about in this, or are you just kind of waiting for the questions?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know necessarily what direction you wanted to take it. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm ready for whatever, I guess.
Well, Buzz got on to me and started saying that you've had an interesting journey towards your current place in life, but he didn't tell me
Okay.
too much more outside of that. So I know that at the moment you are an Orthodox Christian, right?
I guess I'm a catechumen.
You're a catechumen.
Yes, good.
So that as far as I understand, I am in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're not a communing member. That
Right.
will be after your baptism.
Right. Yes, I cannot receive the Eucharist.
Yes, so you can't participate in the sacramental life yet, but a catechumen, for example, who dies into the catechumenate is given a full Orthodox burial.
Right.
So you are basically in the church, not a full member yet.
Right.
Right.
Which that's the goal, right? My goal is to eventually someday be buried in an Orthodox cemetery, right?
Yes. My goal is to not die in a war.
Yeah, that's my goal. Yeah, that's my short-term goal, right?
Serbia has had 50 years in its history of not going into a war, and that was under communist dictatorships.
Okay.
My chances are slim, but
breaking news: Posh Redneck is a communist. We just found out here.
Oh yeah, you should let me into the assemblies and stuff.
Yeah,
that will go well. So, Woodfloor Alchemist, how did you come across Orthodoxy?
Actually from Jim Bob, made by Jim Bob.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, when everything went down there, he had his debate with the BB, the Big Bear. Mm-hmm. I had started watching somebody else in the group had said, hey, Jim Bob's got some really good content kind of taking down like the truther movement or whatever. And I was kind of already on that page, like, this is all kind of like I had filled all the files, and it's like, this is okay, but now what do I do?
The
Right? Well,
folders.
totally. Yeah. Right. I had all the folders, and it's like it's not doing anything for me. You know what I mean? Uh, so I was like on board with that. So I had like started tuning in right before all that went down. But then like, so I'm watching both of these streams, and it's like, okay, there's like clearly something happening here that's not being spoken about. So like I could see the buildup happening. You know what I mean? So then when that happened, I'm like, all right, cool. I can't wait to hear this. And yeah, I mean, obviously Owen Benjamin's a retard. So like Jim Bob just completely destroyed him. And so, but I still was not necessarily convinced of orthodoxy because I was born in the Protestant world. So I had all my own reservations with icons, child baptism, right? All these things. So I spent like a year listening to him and listening to different debates, whatever, Orthodox versus Catholic, Orthodox versus Islam, Orthodox versus Protestant. And it's like they just kept winning, right? But I still didn't like it. I even called into Jim Bob and argued with him a little bit, but I was on the road. I didn't have a good signal. So I didn't get to really flesh that out as much as I wanted. But so after like a year of that, I had another buddy who hit me up and said that he was going to an Orthodox church, and having not been going to church for since 2020 at that point, right? Like as soon as the church is shut down, I'm like, this is retarded. Like, do we believe what we say we believe? Like, you're going to let the government tell you that we just can't go to church. Like, how are you going to let anything COVID, right, get in the, it's like the church is needed now more than ever. Like, what the hell is this, right? So not having gone for that long, like to actually get up on a Sunday with 4 kids and my wife and drag them down to an Orthodox church is like, right? Every Sunday I can come up with an excuse to push it back.
Yeah.
So one Sunday, all of my kids happened to be at grandparents. So it's just me and my wife. So I woke up that Sunday and I'm like, I'm going, right? Like I can argue against it all day, but until I go, I can't really make a decision. So got up, went, and luckily in my area, I know this is not a lot of people's experience, but I was, searching, hey, where's the nearest church? Okay, over here in Goshen, we have Antiochian church, we have Russian church, we have what's the other one? Ukrainian church. Over here in Mishawaka, I have a Greek church. In South Bend, there's a whatever, I think Greek. So I was spoiled for choice. So it's like, all right, I'm going to go to this one over here, the Antiochian. But in my mind, during that whole year, when I'm arguing against it, I'm still basically like equating it to Catholicism, right?
Mhm.
Of course. Yeah.
And obviously, I don't even know, before I'm introduced to it through Jim Bob, I don't even know what Orthodox is, that it exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
Catholics with beard,
obviously,
basically, from a Protestant perspective.
what's that?
From a Protestant perspective, the initial impression is like Catholics with beards.
Yeah.
On the outside, it's just, yeah, just a different brand of Catholicism. Absolutely. That's not, obviously, once you get into it, that's not the case at all, right? But yeah, so that's how I see it. In growing up Protestant, so like my experience in the church growing up was more, I would say, like non-denominationalism, but like my father's side and my mother's side are both, my mother's side is like Jesus only Pentecostal, super charismatic. Women can't wear pants, can't wear makeup, can't cut their hair. My mom was literally told she'll go to hell for doing these things, which she was doing. You know what I mean? And on my
Yeah.
dad's side, it was still Pentecostal, speaking in tongues, but like not quite as strict with the women. So yeah, I mean the idea of like Catholic is just, yeah, that's blasphemy, right?
Hmm.
They're the devil.
Yeah, it's
So
paganism, right? It's probably something about Constantine and Nicaea.
I mean,
That's
that's
how
like
it
basically the
rolls out.
Illuminati from my
Oh,
perspective.
yeah.
you know? So, but yeah, so I got up that Sunday. I went and I went to St. Mary's, which is actually where I go now. But I pull up, I don't want to be late, right? So I'm there early. So I'm like there for like morning prayers and confession and whatnot. So it's not full yet. So it's just this like little small building, and I'm like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like noticeably the new person, right? I just want to blend in and experience. So I'm like, all right, next, let's go up north a little bit. We're going to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Or no, the Russian. The Russian was next. Same thing, just this tiny little building, no cars. I'm like, what the heck? I'm expecting a huge like Catholic cathedral that just happens to be Orthodox. Okay, keep going. Next, Ukrainian. Same thing. Well, I'm in Goshen. Mishawaka's, an hour and a half the other direction, and it's 9 o'clock. You know what I mean? Now it's time to start. So I'm going to this one. So I go in and I go to that one, and I liked it, but like it didn't like blow me away. They had pews, and they still like stood a lot, but they had pews, and half of the liturgy was in Ukrainian, which is obviously not an argument to like not go to an Orthodox church. I recognize that, but it was like, okay, I have so many choices. I'm going to try another one, and I really wanted to try the Greek Orthodox. So I went the next week out to Mishawaka to the Greek Orthodox. This was a much bigger church. This is more what you expect, big gold dome. You know what I mean? Which we have a lot of Greek in the area, so that's not really surprising, right? But they still had the pews, and it was a lot less in Greek than the Ukrainian was in Ukrainian. It had a lot more English, but the attendance was lower. But there was another cool family there. This week I have my kids, right? Because I'm already in it now, right? So it's like, all right, we're all going. My wife's not coming, but I took all my kids. So there was another cool family there that was like a homeschooling family, right? Like crushing, huge family, bunch of kids. So my kids are now playing with their kids, and right, the elders are introducing me to the husband, and now we're chopping it up, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you need to go to St. Mary's, the first one that you rejected. That's where you need to go." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" You know what I mean? Okay, I'm going to listen. So that next week, I go out to St. Mary's, which is the Antiochian. And so I was like arguing with Buzz about this, right? Like the idea that like, oh, because it's Antiochian, you can expect this, or the idea that it's because it's Greek. Like I knew there was cultural things, but I didn't know that it would be necessarily like the fact that it's Antiochian, it is going to be better at adapting to the culture that it's actually in, and like being accepting of other cultures integrating into it, right? So since then I have learned that he was right. Okay. So I thought it was just coincidence. So I go, and then yeah, I mean when I walk into that one, no pews, only chairs around the outside, everybody's standing, most of the women have their head covered. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh dude, like all the floors covered in these beautiful rugs. You know what I mean? It is like, oh dude, this is it, right? I mean, packed wall to wall, almost nowhere to stand. Kids, right? Families. So I'm like, all right, I just go here now. You know.
Yeah.
So then at that point, at the end of that service, I am introduced to Father Matthew, and as soon as I meet him, he's like, God bless you. I said, thank you. God bless you too. And he looks at me and he goes, I am. I'm like, what the heck? You know what I mean? Like later I learned like you don't bless the Father, right? The Father
Yeah.
blesses you.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you will see if you have a chance to visit like a hierarchical liturgy, which is like when there's a bishop there.
Right.
Priests don't bless anyone because he's the guy, right? He is
Right.
the
Right.
bishop,
Right.
so he is the one who dispenses the blessing, right?
Right.
When
Right.
he is not there, the priest bless in his stead.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Right.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
when Protestants say it, they don't mean I bless you, right? I give you a blessing. Like they mean it's like a may God bless you, like a prayer of sorts.
Yeah. Right. 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 Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So, like, they're also in the church. Every church has a chair that is just for the bishop.
Yes, the
You know
throne.
what I'm talking? What's it called?
It's called the throne, although technically the one on the outside didn't used to be. It used to be for like the local lord or the emperor or something. But you have the one in the altar called the synthronon,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
that is.
that's traditionally where he did. But when monarchies fell and stuff, like the bishop was out, but it's like the bishop's throne.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so like nobody's allowed to sit in that, right? And I never even
No.
noticed it was there. You know what I mean? So they do a homeschool group. So like on Wednesday or Thursday. And we're there, and my wife's there with the kids. She doesn't have any idea what's going on, right? And my kids, right, are all like, I have these little ones just running around, and they're all like jumping around, playing on the bishop's chair, So
Yeah,
I
they
get to
won't
hear
mind
like that.
children, but
No, yeah, right. They were like very kind about it, but they're like, your kids need to get off that chair, okay?
Thank you.
Nobody sits in that chair. So yeah, so then I go and I meet him, and I'm like, hey, what's up? How do I join this church? I'm ready to join this church. And he's like, chill out. Why don't you show up for 3 months and then we'll talk. So I mean, at that point, obviously, it's like a little disappointing, but it's like, okay, I understand the assignment. I'll be here,
Yeah.
and I just never stopped going.
good.
Yeah, yeah, right.
You
So
kind of want it to just be like a bolt of lightning, something amazing happens. But he's
what do
like,
you mean?
you want to arrive and something amazing happens, and then he tells you, no, come for 3 months and then we'll talk.
Yeah,
It's
right, right,
that sort
right.
of feeling.
Right. Well, you know what? It wasn't. I had like heard uh, so many people talk about this like radical experience that they have in the liturgy, and I didn't. But I know that I want to be a part of this thing, and I definitely appreciate the structure. And I know for my family at this point, like the fact that I have not had them in church for that long is like, it's not good, right? They need to be in a church, and that was something that uh Jim Bob talked about as well, right? Because I have this natural like libertarian spirit, right? Nobody's gonna tell me what to do, da 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 da. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm gonna instill that in my kids, and can I be surprised when my kids don't want to listen to me? And right, like that really resonated with me. It's like we have to have something that we answer to,
Hmm.
you know. And then you start to get into like Andrew and the idea of duty, and you know what I mean. It just all makes so much sense. So it's like, okay, but like when a little bit before I left my Protestant church, I kind of had to ask myself like, why can I tell a Muslim that they're wrong? You know,
Mhm.
what's the answer to that? Okay, why is mine the right one? And at the time, the best thing that I could come up with was like, I've had an experience, which I have. I mean, I've had a radical experience that like I can't deny, but that doesn't mean that I know who that experience is with, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, how can I prove that? Like, has a Muslim not had an experience? That's a shit argument, right? Like, I recognize that right off the bat. So it's like, all right, I have to really step back and reevaluate this. But I'm still like, I'm so involved in my church at that time. I'm still going. So once 2020 happened and I cut that off, and that's, I'm spending whatever, I guess, 4 years in the wilderness trying to figure it out. And that's when, right, like you listen to the orthodox position. I guess, I mean, it starts with the idea that like, what is truth, right? Okay, like how do you ground truth? It's very difficult to ground truth outside of a person, right? So Jesus is that person, Jesus is truth, right? Okay, we start there, and then it's like, well, okay, Jesus existed, Jesus is truth. uh so he started a church. Where's that church? Right?
Mm.
We should be able to find that church. You know what I mean? So then at that point, it's like, okay, you got two choices: Catholic or Orthodox. And
Or it
I
could be
like
that it could be that non-denominational one with the lesbian pastor, though. Surely.
no, obviously not,
I'd go
right? Like that's
for
it. That's
I'd
it.
go for the Mormons personally.
What's that?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd go for
Yeah,
the
right,
Mormons
right,
personally.
right. Is that there's no choice, right? Because it has to. The apostolic succession is bulletproof, right? There's
Mhm.
no argument as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Because schisms are not new. There was first century schisms,
Yeah.
okay,
You have the
right?
apostles, asking Jesus, well, these guys are not of us, and they're like doing stuff, and
Right.
so even in the Gospels, we have
In the time of Jesus. in the time that the apostles are setting up the church. And that's like, if I argue that and I can't get through to you, I don't know what to do, right? But it's like at the time that the apostles are setting up churches, there are schisms. Are they the church Jesus set up? Okay, so is anything that departs from the church that they set up possibly it? It can't be. It can't be, right? So it's like no brainer at that point. So so at that point, now you have to decide: is it Catholic or is it Orthodox? And I like to think that I give Catholicism a fair shake in the whole thing. Do I really? I don't know. Okay, it probably was just never a choice, but
Yeah.
it makes the Orthodox does make the most sense to me.
Hmm.
So my brother-in-law uh just took my sister and his family into the Catholic Church. So we were on this road. He was going Catholic officially, like, right. He started his I don't remember what they call theirs, but his learning process a little bit before me, right? So we had that overlap, and so we were able to have really good conversations about that. And to him, it makes more sense. So we're both small business owners, right? To him, it makes more sense that, like, okay, if you have a company, there has to be a final authority, right? The owner is the final authority. So, like, the Pope jives with him, right? To me, the way that it makes more sense is it's like we do have that final authority. It's Jesus. Jesus established a company, and when he left, when he handed the church over to the apostles, he essentially had taken the company public and handed it over now to a board of directors. Right? That's how I
That's a
look at it.
decent analogy.
Right. So that's how I look at it. That makes more sense to me. It's like, listen, we're taking this thing public and you guys are going to grow it across the world. We're going worldwide. We're not big
Mhm.
enough. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's how I look at it. That's what makes more sense to me. The idea that, yeah, a man can be infallible in the mouthpiece of God. Obviously that's a little crazy. Right? Now you can't, you know what I mean? All you can do is cope when he says something crazy.
Yeah. So I remember first being not agreeing at all with Jordan Peterson, who said being a Catholic is as rational as a human being can be. But then I veered off more into like empiricism in my, consideration of the thing. But then I realized he was actually right? Because it does make sense in a human analysis for there to be like that final say with one guy, right? If we're going to decide on something, someone must have the final word.
Right.
So it does make sense when you think about it in the abstract. The problem is that's not how it works. That's not how it worked in the first millennium, with even people like Ratzinger, who went on to become Pope Benedict the 16th. Right? He said there was no high papacy in the first millennium. Right? So the problem is it's not about whether you can think of a system that makes sense. A lot of Protestants did that, and look at where it got them. I
Right.
tell people, um, look at just the absolute state of the Lutheran churches, right? Most of them, like not to even mention like the Church of Sweden and Norway and Finland, like those are just outrageous. With like female, I think all three are headed by women, right? And they were state churches. They themselves broke off, I think. At least I'm sure for Sweden. Like there wasn't a push to get them out. They decided to go out. But look at them reforming the church, right? Which means to bring back the original one.
Okay, Posh, can I pause you just for a second? So yeah, Rip said thanks, Dr. Crispy, for the notification. Or should I say Rip or RIP?
I don't
Um,
know.
for the notification. So thanks for sending out the notification, Crispy. Anybody else who can share that we're live? Let's let YouTube know that there are people in the world who do want to watch this. So and also, we've set the lofty goal, the donation goal at the top of 50. Considering we've never gotten more than maybe 5 or 10, that could be a big goal, right? But I've set up the Ko-fi.com at the bottom, Ko-fi.com, the Baron and the Redneck. So if you donate to that, if we get to our goal, Posh has to sing an Irish ballad at the end. That's the deal we've come up with. Yeah, that'd be great. It'd help us pay for our streaming software, and Posh blackmails me as well. He has the information, so I have to send him money.
Yes.
Great. Now you can continue.
So I'll continue. So the ones who were reforming the church, look at where they are and how far they've fallen, even compared to Catholics. So even though we would disagree with Catholics, there's still much more similarity with the modus operandi with Catholics and us, right?
Right.
The apostolic succession and stuff. And, doctrine is very, very, stiff, rigid in both, although obviously they have problems with popes. But you can see that they started off like saying, we're bringing back the original. And that attempt ended up in so much more liberalization than anything that the Catholics did.
Right.
Right. So sure, we would disagree. We would agree on a lot of things, especially like social teachings. Whereas, and you have like a Calvinist project, which is the Church of England. Like they're also pathetic, and it's splintered into a million groups. So we see that the Protestant view of things just ends up being individualistic, and brought like branches are brought about based on the charisma of a particular preacher or something. And that you try to argue with there's the YouTube Razor Fist, right? So he returned to Lutheranism, and he is more on the socially conservative aspect of it. But you hear like, oh yeah, but that's these guys. But I go to like the something Missouri Synod. Like, yeah, no, that's the true church, the Missouri Synod Lutherans. So, as you said, it is a choice. Basically, is it Catholicism or is it Orthodox? I suppose one might try to go for like the non-Chalcedonians, the Copts or something. But even then, you can compare how a little they've changed.
You said Coptic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dude, this is interesting. So I just had a big argument last night, and you might be the right person to ask about this. I mean, obviously, I need to go to my spiritual father, but this is just, I don't really care. I'm not, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't even have a position on this. I don't know enough about it, right? But what are your thoughts on old calendarists?
So the Serbian and the Russian church are on the old calendar.
Like they are still.
Yes, we celebrate Christmas on January 7th.
Well, so does Antiochian, but you still use a normal, new revised Julian calendar for your like everyday life.
So the Orthodox Church, Serbian Orthodox Church, issues these little, we call them just crkveni kalendar, like a church calendar. And it's got all sorts of cool things. So let me go for June. I don't know if I can get it to focus. The lighting is very off, but you can see like there's two sets of numbers here. One for the old calendar and one for the new one. And then it lists out what's being celebrated. You have like the feast days, the readings on Sunday, etc., etc. It's a very cool thing, and priests give them out like candy. So if you want to buy one, it will like take you back at least 20 cents.
Yeah, right. Do you consider yourself an old calendarist?
No.
Right. You don't consider yourself an old calendarist Orthodox.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Like we operate on the old calendar, and I don't want that changed. But the idea that, and I'm pretty sure that the new calendar was actually devised by a Serb. So it's like a recalculation of things. So there's plenty of things that go around about it. My problem is this is a type of like Pharisaic rigorism that they approach things with. So
Old
I'm not.
calendars.
Yeah, I'm not a rigorist for rigorism's sake, right? That's silly. That's
Okay.
that's goes against the spirit of orthodoxy. Um, it's sort of like when Rome clamped down, and now everything must be in Latin, everything must be the same everywhere, right? Until they
Okay.
got like the
Okay.
Eastern Catholics, which are like Orthodox betrayers. But, but then they opened up, and now it's just, well, as long as you accept the Pope as supreme, like the rest doesn't really matter. But
Right.
yeah, I'm not an old calendarist. I am part of the
Okay.
old calendar church, but
But
no,
are I feel like all Orthodox churches are old calendar churches, right?
no.
So same for you. We celebrate church January 7th. We celebrate Pascha the first Sunday after Passover.
Yeah. So all churches agree for Pascha.
Right. Not the
Uh,
Catholic Church. Not Protestant
no,
church,
no, no. So
right?
we don't celebrate Christmas on the same day, but we celebrate Pascha on the same day. All churches agree on
Right. So in that way, it was like I see us all as that. But then, all right, my buddy who is also a catechumen was telling me about these old calendarists and the fact he said it was in like 1960 because the Julian calendar had already been established through the Catholic Church and widely accepted, but the Orthodox were still operating on the old calendar. 1960, basically a guy uh, had said, "Hey, we're gonna switch to the new revised Julian calendar," and a
that.
lot of people were really, really against it. But it was basically like I think he may have like got excommunicated, but like it had already been underway. So then over time, it had become accepted in the Orthodox Church across all the bishops. We're gonna operate on the Julian calendar, but then you had this group who was like purist and like no, this is the calendar that we've operated on for 2,000 years, and this is how we're going to continue to operate. So, from my understanding, they have been completely excommunicated and are considered heretical. And then they also consider us heretical and claim that like anything after them, like the Eucharist is not blessed.
Valid.
Yeah, it's not valid. Right.
Right. So you will get. This is a thing. Also, like you have spurgs of monumental size. You have people who say uh, that liturgy is invalid because it has a four-part choir. Because traditionally you would have like a single voice uh, composition, right? And it was symbolizing like how we all worship in unity. So if you've got like two voices, like let's say, I don't know how much you go with music, but it symbolizes disunity. Or if you let women sing and stuff, so you have no idea how much people get deluded with these nonsense factors, but you, you can't concern yourself too much with it. The devil will take you if he can take you into a liberal direction. He will take you there. If he can take you into a rigorous direction, I don't call it conservative. It's not about conservatives. It's not about conserving anything. It's about process for the process's sake. He will take you there happily, right? So you will find all sorts of nutty people, and you can't waste too much time on it. They don't believe in
Okay.
grace. That's basically like they turn things into magic, right? It's a very pagan form of thinking, right? If you move like this, there's like the sign of the cross, regular one, and then there's like a shortened one, which priests tend to use so as not to swing their arms around too much near like the chalice.
Right.
Oh
Because
Right.
god.
Right.
if you
Right.
spill it, that's like scandalous. So
Right.
and they're like, oh, that's not the true sign of the cross. Like the sign of the cross isn't magic. Like we're not touching points of our chakras, right? And like pushing away demons or something.
So there's
It-
always been
Oh,
bears.
wait a second.
yes.
Wait a second.
Like,
Okay, devil's advocate. What if I accidentally go to my right side first?
Um, here's the thing. What I understand is the decision was to touch the right shoulder when you say holy and the left shoulder when you say spirit.
Right.
So the reason the Catholics do it the other way around is that you don't say Holy Spirit, you say Spirit Holy. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. So they say Spiritus, Spirit first, Sancti second. So they touch the left one first, the right one later. I think the Armenian Church does the same thing for the same reason. So it ends up being a bit confusing because, in English you say holy and then spirit.
Right,
but,
right.
But the practice is still left from when it was all in Latin.
Right.
So I don't know if you were praying in some language. I'm trying to help you out, but it's not about magic. People get confused and sometimes touch the left shoulder first or something.
Yeah, but you would agree that like a point is made that it is the left shoulder and then the right shoulder. I feel like a point has definitely been made in the Orthodox Church. It's like, dude, if you go to the right shoulder first, that's Catholic.
All the way around.
That's not us.
So left first is Catholic.
You're confusing.
Sorry, if you go to the left first, yeah.
See, you've devil advocated yourself into the
I was
opposite.
like trying to make sure I did the opposite. I ended up, yeah, dude.
Practicing in front of a mirror.
Right.
That would explain you mixing up left and right if you were practicing in a mirror. But yeah, so that's again, people go crazy about it. You have the types of rigorists in the like what are they sedevacantists and stuff who will say things like if a priest sneezes during mass, it's invalid.
Catholic then?
Those are like the extreme, like the ones who think like the popes don't even count anymore. It's all been
right.
So
I will say, like, I have heard more people experiencing like the legalism through the Catholic side. I mean, I've received nothing but grace through the Orthodox Church, but I have heard, people having experiences. Even like my sister, she going to the Catholic Church, she stopped going because like all of the elders were coming at her because she has young children who are acting like young children. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have not had that experience. I actually like worry about it. I think more than the people around me, right? I'm like stressing and constantly like, I can't even experience the liturgy half the time.
Those are called in the Orthodox Church, we call those holy sounds, right? Because we see it as a blessing for the children to do. Now, obviously, if you have like a toddler who starts screaming, crying,
right? You take them out.
You take them out,
Yeah.
but until they calm down, and then you go back in, right? It's a lot of people use that as an excuse. Like, why are you even there then? If you're trying to find an excuse to get out, what's the point?
Yeah, well, no, I have a buddy who said that exact thing. He's like, I feel like there's no point in me going because I feel like I have to take my kid out the whole time. But it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like to me, it's like being there, just being there.
Yeah, and you should try and listen and participate to the extent you can. Obviously, God sees all things.
But it comes over time.
Yeah.
Right? That like going back to like what I was saying though. Okay, like we're like, oh, you expect to show up and have this radical experience. Because I'm always going with my kids, a lot of times I'm not, you know what I mean, catching a lot, right? So like over time, I'll notice something new. You know what I mean? Oh, wow. Yeah, we do that every week and I never even noticed that. Wow. And I have had over time that experience during like parts of the chants where I have had that like really intense, like, you know what I mean? Now I have like body chills and whatnot. I have had that over time, but it's like over time and you're just constantly learning. Another thing that I like, that I heard was like with the icons and everything, like you can't leave, right? Even in your mind, it's not possible. Everywhere you look,
It's
Everywhere you look
designed
in the
to keep every sense focused on Christ. The
Right.
smell,
You
the
can't escape
bells,
it.
right? The icons, the chanting, everything, right? So it's sort of the thing when we're talking about legalism. Um, I remember like 2 years ago, I asked Jay about it, Jay Dye, and he put me on the path of like researching what's happening, right? Because there's this whole Donatist controversy. The Donatists were people who said like only priests who have perfect moral standing can, officiate the sacraments. And the church was like, "What? What manner of thinking is that?" Because you're now trying to make the man, the priest himself, the person who's doing things. Like,
Mm.
no,
Right.
he
Right.
he
Right.
is. It's God doing it,
Right.
and
True.
he is the person who he is doing it through.
Right.
So when we have someone like Saint Augustine respond to this, he said, like ex opere operato, like out of the working itself, it works, right? So in the West, unfortunately, that develops into basically like a theurgic type of thinking, where how you say things, what exact motions you use, you don't miss out any swinging of the incense and stuff, because
Mm.
that is what does the thing. They even have this thing called indelible character, where if a priest is ordained a priest, uh, he can become a Satanist and still be able to confect the Eucharist. In Orthodoxy, that's madness.
That is
If you're
pretty wild.
defrocked, like I'm saying, he can become a Satanist and get defrocked, he can still do it.
Right.
For us,
Mm.
no. If you're not part of the church, you're not part of the priesthood, you can't, right?
Right.
Because and that's the shift you see. Because for us, we have this view that God does things. We have this right essence energy distinction. Not to get into that, but the rigorism that they are bound by, including things like a priest whose baptismal video, taping it. It turned out that the priest who was baptizing him didn't say, "I bless you, I baptize you in the name of the Father." He said, "We baptize you in the name of the Father," which meant the baptism was invalid, which meant his priesthood was invalid, which means all of the sacraments he officiated were invalid.
Why wouldn't that be correct? We baptize. Isn't that how we say it?
No, no, no. I baptize you, in their view, uh, the priest is in persona Christi, like in the person of Christ. So he is the representative of Christ in the sacrament. So he has to say, "I baptize you."
Oh, gotcha.
So in
Mm.
their view, if you're saying "we," who's "we"?
Father, the
Right?
Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Well, no, it's Christ baptizing, right? So you can't get away from it. But imagine the type of madness that this can induce, like their obsession with
Well,
whether
let's be
they're in
fair.
the state of
Let's
mortal sin
let's be
and
fair. Let's be fair here. I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Okay.
not worked out great before, but let's try
What
round two.
what if I mean we got to test these things. What if I'm baptized just in the name of Jesus?
That's not a Trinitarian baptism. We have
Okay, so it's invalid.
yeah, you would be baptized in the Trinity, right?
Right.
But that's not the problem.
Where's the distinction?
Yeah, the
I'm not saying it's
distinction.
not there.
Mhm. But we are told to baptize in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So you are directly going against that. Uh, the level that they perceive it on is that it's a formula you follow. So now you just haven't followed the formula. Not that you've separated from the essence of it. It's like saying, well, what if we don't use any water and we do it in like Coca-Cola or something, right? And now you're starting to veer off from tradition. So these minute things we wouldn't say invalidate sacraments. There is a formula to follow, but it's
Right.
not like a magical formula, like a spell, like incantations, and you have to draw things right. So if you're like making a sigil or something, it has to be perfect from a magical point of view. Like, it's not about that. You can have faulty sacraments, right? But then the church would re-examine that, obviously. So that's the level of rigorism we're talking about, is that they believe it's the priest himself who's sort of doing the thing in
Right.
persona Christi,
Right.
and how things fall apart. Because it could happen, like, who knows how many times something like that has happened before there were cameras,
Right.
right? So who
Yeah.
knows? Like, you can have
Yeah.
an entire nation unbaptized. Like, it would explain the state of South America, for example, if someone was messing up, right? But yeah, you see, that's where we would distinguish things. That's why we would reject rigorism, whether in our
Right.
own ranks or like these people who have, schism.
Right.
Why do you think it is that people in the West generally seem to be so technically minded? We seem to veer that direction with these things.
Well, I told you, a lot of it comes from that ex opere operato. The second is, there was a point, I'm not sure which point, uh, but the focus stopped being on the resurrection as much as it was on the cross itself, right? So for us Orthodox, the resurrection is, it's a bit of an exaggeration to say everything, but it's our entire focus is on the resurrection, right? Not just because, hey, he was dead, look at him now, right? It has many, many implications, and the restoration of human nature and stuff. Too much to get into on a stream like this,
It's
but
one of your favorite parts. We could say that.
yeah, not just that, it's one of the most important ones. But so obviously there's huge significance to Great Friday, right? Oh, you call it Good Friday. Uh, but they just kept focusing more on that, to the point when Protestantism grew out of that. Their entire focus is on the cross, the crucifixion itself, right?
Well, when you said the West, were you referring to the Catholic Church?
Initially, yes. So they have so much focus on Calvary and stuff. So how the suffering of Jesus on the cross, they put massive, massive emphasis on it. And their understanding of sin also became more like a point system.
Well, no,
Um,
what I was referring to was Western people generally,
Like
uh,
America.
like Americans
well,
and
yes, but
Western Europe.
America, especially because it was founded mostly by, initially not like the government system, but like the first settlers were Puritans,
Right.
right? And you can imagine Puritans are very legalistically minded, right? No music, no dancing, no nothing. You must be miserable all the time, and that's part of Calvinist thinking, predeterminism, right? Because Puritanism grew out of Calvinism. Um, so there is always that focus. Um, it's not to say that the West is the only place that's focused on legalism, uh, but I'm telling you, there's like a through line when it starts shifting more towards like Jesus dying for your sins, rather than focusing on his resurrection, his harrowing of Hades. They have that, like the Catholics believe that. I'm saying the focus shifts. And especially then in the Middle Ages and with Thomas Aquinas, you have the uh, introduction of a lot of Aristotelian thinking, and that blends very poorly with orthodoxy, because now you have absolute divine simplicity. That means no essence energies distinction. That means you never interact with God directly. You only interact by created effects. Um, there's this loss of understanding of how much it is about healing. Again, with Catholics, it's there. With Protestants, who knows anymore? it's basically Jesus died for your sins. You're good. You're good now. Whereas we would disagree because the Bible would disagree. But it doesn't matter. It becomes a way of thinking where the Catholics focus too much on themselves in terms of, oh, I mustn't do something wrong because if I do this and I don't confess it, and on my way to the confessional I trip and hit my head on a rock and die, I'm going to hell. Right. So
Yeah.
this fear drives you into a legalistic way of thinking.
Well,
Whereas
I'm
we
curious.
also Mhm.
Would you attribute it at all to just like the way that like scientism has really infected the culture and like a Platonian mindset, and
uh,
you have to have an answer for everything. You know what I mean? If it works, it works because it does this, or you know what I mean?
not
It's like
too
very like
much.
engineer, right?
Yeah,
There's no
yeah, yeah.
mystery.
But well, these types of scientists were called mechanical philosophers. Uh,
Right.
but I don't think that drove it. I think that is more a consequence than a cause.
That's the
Uh,
question. That's kind of what I was asking is this a consequence or a cause? Like, is there something different in our culture
First,
or in our,
chicken, the
because
egg.
I read a book that Buzz suggested to me early, maybe a year or two ago,
hmm,
which suggested in it that if you ask a man from the West to tell you about a tree that he sees in the garden, he'll say, well,
Yeah.
it's maybe 30 centimeters diameter.
Right. Right.
You can
Right.
guess that the root size is going to be mirrored from the branch size, so it's going to be going that much under the ground.
hmm,
Like, whereas if you ask an Eastern man uh, about that same tree, he'll say it gives this much shade in the summer.
hmm,
My kids swung in it, and that there's a different mindset
hmm.
when asked questions. And what I'm
Is that
sort of
knowing the
getting at
faith?
is, sorry.
Was it knowing the faith?
It probably was knowing the faith. Yeah, yeah. I've read a few.
The book.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's more of a consequence because you get a lot of legalism, as I said, from fear, because you constantly need to monitor what you're doing. That's not vigilance isn't a bad thing, but if it's just geared towards I don't want to go to hell, you miss out on the grace of God and focus only on fear. Uh, and we don't tend to be very legalistic when it's good, fun things, right? Because you
Hmm.
just enjoy them. And I'm talking about wholesome fun, not saying go to like a music festival or whatever. I'm talking about good and wholesome things. You don't think about minutiae because you're not concerned. You're actually just happy and you can live it. As you gave that example about the tree, right? It's a good tree for uh, to put a swing on. You remember it from when you were little, and stuff like that. You're attached to it as an entity,
Mm-hmm.
not as a set of qualifiers or descriptors. So with fear, you do that, right? When you're sick, you're very careful what you eat, what you drink, what you do. But when you're healthy, you just kind of wing it for the most part.
Yeah.
So I think that's more the cause, and the consequence is that when you get to a point where science is like an off ramp, you take it, right? Because you can't stand to live in this constant terror, right? I think it's also part of why Protestantism shot off as it did, because hey, yes, it keeps saying like Jesus is this cool, merciful guy, yet all I have to do is be deathly afraid that I'm going to end up in hell. So it gives you will find so many people like in the Protestant world interacting with us and like the people like Jim Bob or Jay or Andrew, and they say, "How can you be sure you're saved?" And if you think about what I was talking about earlier, you can see how they end up with that being the pivotal thing. They want assurance of salvation.
Well, they're
So
talking past each other too. when he goes to answer that question, he can't even answer it because they're talking past each other. When they talk about something like being saved, they're not even speaking the same language. They don't have the same understanding.
Yeah, they think that that's about whether you go to hell when you die. Like, where did
Right,
you get
right.
that? Salvation
I've
refers to like
I've
judgment.
been saved. I'm being saved, and I will continue to be saved.
Yes, Father Josiah Trenham makes that point very
Yes,
well. That it's used in both past, present, and future tenses.
we're
But
always being saved.
yes, yes, it's a process, but they believe
Right.
it's a moment, and
No, no,
now
no.
they have
Right.
assurance. But you see how there's still a leftover concerns over that constant fear of hell.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think that's what really did it in the West, and legalism. It ends up being like a zigzag. They keep. I imagine it like. When the Reformation happened, like they grabbed each other, like the Catholics and the Protestants started rolling down the hill, you know, grabbing each other by the throat. Turns out then Catholics sort of slowed down and, and the Protestants decided to go off a cliff rather than just downhill. But that's how I see it. You had the Counter Reformation movement, and then it it got even worse because the more legalism you have, the more fear you have, and then you need more legalism, which reduces more fear, and it keeps getting worse. And then you get something like Vatican II, and now we're hippies.
Hmm.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's an unhealthy, it's an unnatural state of mind, right? For us Orthodox, we really focus on joy, although we have obviously Lent and stuff where we should think about ourselves, but that's for spiritual health. But we're told to pursue spiritual peace because when your spirit gets rattled, you're easy to fall into temptations of all sorts. You can fall into anger. It's temptation isn't just
Hmm.
sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? Rage is a playground for the demons. They can make you do something horrible, and it will seem justified in the moment. But and that's something that's much more a concern for me.
Yeah. Sure.
I yes, God protect us from all temptations.
Trust me, I know about
Uh,
that.
Hmm.
but you see, we really have this focus on spiritual health rather than just some type of behavioral, monitor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's I was talking to the deacon, and I'm the type of person that, like, usually when I get into something, I dive headfirst into it. It's like I'm gonna be the best at this, you know what I mean, ever,
Hmm.
right? Now, I don't usually do that, but that's my attitude towards it.
Hmm.
And I learn a lot about things very fast, but then I get bored of it and I kind of put it down. And like going into orthodoxy, it's actually like when Father Matthew told me, hey, wait 3 months, da da da. It's like really a blessing, and he knew that, and that's what they are, is a spiritual doctor ultimately, right?
Yeah, it's a
And
hospital, not a courthouse, as
right,
St.
right,
John
right,
Chrysostom
exactly,
says.
yeah. So like going into orthodoxy and knowing that I wanted to do this with my life, uh I knew that I did not want to do that, right? It's like I am not interested in being the best Orthodox,
Hmm.
And I told Deacon Ephraim that, I said, I that's my attitude towards this because I do not want to burn out. And then he hit me up a couple days later, and he was like, "Yeah, that was a really interesting thing that you said. It's kind of profound because the Orthodox Church, like it you don't perfect orthodoxy. Orthodoxy perfects you. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like I think that that's really important, and that's a pitfall that young guys going into orthodoxy could fall prey to, is just going in and like being the best that there is, and then like burning out on it or whatever.
yeah. So right when you get into catechesis, you will have uh, decisions made. For example, you don't follow a full prayer rule. Let's get you just some very simple prayers.
Dude, if I can wake up and do my prayers and before bed do my prayers, I was successful today.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but people jump into it like they start living like a monastic. Like you are not going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got my
And then
3
you will,
o'clock
as you said,
prayers,
crash and
my
burn.
6 o'clock prayers, my 9 o'clock prayers, right?
Yeah, yeah. What, are you going to keep vigil?
Right,
You
right,
know?
right, right, right.
So you don't go into it to become a monastic. You go into monasticism if you want to become a monastic, and you will probably find out you're not very good at that if that was your attitude, because the thing is, I love this one from Father Stephen DeYoung. He says, if you're a monastic, you're a novice, you're trying to get into the brotherhood, you are under full submission to the abbot. If he says, go stick a stick into the ground and water it for 30 days, you do it. What does it do? You're there to learn obedience if you want to be a monastic. If you want to have a
Hey,
family life, it's
it
going to
might
be
bud.
hectic. Hmm?
It might bud.
It might, but even if he doesn't, you know, I had like an atheist period between like 12 or 13 to about 15, and when I came back, we all spurg out when we are teenagers. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to read Dostoevsky, who's obviously probably the best writer ever. And I read, you know, the brothers Karamazov. Uh, and there's this point at which, the third brother, wanted to be a monastic. So he goes to this abbot, and he's thought by everyone that he's going to be holy. And when he dies, it's going to be myrrh flowing out of his body.
Mm.
And then when he dies, like his body just gives out this odious stench. It's like a plague marine. But you see, because he's making a point, God will meet you somewhere, but you don't get to have like formulae, as we talked about earlier, right? He will throw you a curveball every so often. When you said about liturgy, maybe it's for the better that you don't have just this amazing experience the first time,
Right.
because these types of experiences are short lasting.
Mm-hmm.
Saint Vladimir Nikolai Velimirovich, he says, like miracles, when miracles happen with like relics and stuff, he says, when men fail, God rushes to inanimate objects to reach us. So that's why even when Jesus said, "Ye of little faith," right, faithless generation and stuff, you want miracles all the time. These are short bursts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen miracles, and they don't linger that long. I have to think about them, right? But your everyday practice is what sticks with you. How you live your life, that's what sticks with you. That's how you keep close to God, and not just go for like I need extraordinary things to happen all the time, to the point where you have, like Richard Dawkins said, if I saw in the stars written, "Richard, believe in me," I would assume I had gone mad. So okay, so now you have an unfalsifiable thesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can even end there. You would rather retreat to solipsism than look at miracles, and that's my explanation of these things. It's not meant to be fun. It's meant to be enlightening and to lift you up spiritually.
It is amazing
Yeah,
how people do have those boundaries to belief. You've reminded me of I'm new to Twitter, or X. I'm kind of new to it. So I've been throwing around random arguments with people on a disparate number of topics. But this one guy started arguing. I don't know. He made some comment about how stupid you'd have to be a theist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even remember the details of the conversation. But he reached a point where he said to me, make an argument, or he actually made the claim that he had any number of arguments he could make that would absolutely poke a hole immediately in all of Christianity. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, you could make a lot of money on the debate circuit, man. You know, you want give me one of these holes, like, you know.
Mhm.
And he gave me a bunch. Like, he gave what was the actual hole he gave me? Oh, Jonah and the whale.
Mhm.
And he said, how did he survive in the well? Right,
You
that was
said
his.
he did.
That was his hole. I was just like, okay. And
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
The type of people who go to www.whychristianitysucks.org
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then have a list of things and they read them out. It's remember when people were saying Christians are stupid and atheists are smart. There's a point where, f- still for the time being, like in America, most people who would convert are very educated people because you have to look for it,
Hmm.
right? Think of it as
Right.
if the only language you can understand things is Latin, right? That's what the case was in the Middle Ages in Europe, Latin or Greek. That's the technical language. So the people who couldn't read and understand Latin or Greek, they sort of couldn't access these things. In Scotland, that was the case before they adopted English fully, right? They didn't have access to all the things that were written in English. So
Right.
only the people who were educated in Scotland and could understand English had access to it. But in America, as God willing, like orthodoxy takes more of a momentum, like you will have people who aren't particularly, educated or don't have too much, don't spend too much time on these things that are familiar with it and start going into it, because it becomes a trend. Uh, and obviously, people who are in the current trend as it is changing, you're going to be left with people who are not, the most brilliant. But that's what happens in like communist countries when you have severe traitorous. You have severe like clampdown on religiosity. A lot of people are going to become atheists, including the very poorly educated. But when you had only the people who were really into topics, well, when Christianity was the mainstream view, they're going to be the ones who jump out. Uh, but then when it becomes normal, now atheism is pretty normal, irrespective of education or intelligence, because it's
Yeah.
a trend.
Hmm.
So people don't think about it. They always go for things like, oh, if you're high IQ, you're an atheist, right? Only stupid people are religious. But I don't know why people struggle so much with basic statistics.
It is a bizarre thing that they can't sort of look a little deeper.
Yeah, and I mean not statistics as in like despite making no, not hate statistics per se, but just how things operate, right?
Hmm.
I really struggle to see why that is so difficult, why people can't understand. I remember here's a great one from Thomas Sowell. He said comparing like Japanese Americans and African Americans paying by income. Says, yeah, what huge thing is, people will just say, well, it's the culture. Well, here's one thing that isn't culture. When he was doing the research, the average age of a Japanese American was 50 something, and the average
Right.
age of an African American is 20 something. So if you
Right.
compare African Americans in the 50s to their 20s, they have a lot more money
Mm.
just
Yeah.
by that factor alone.
Right. Right.
They don't want to because they just oversimplify everything. And people just turn variables into constants
I
when
have a
they want
working
to push an
theory.
ideology.
I have a working theory that extrapolation is the core weakness of
Hmm.
people with struggle with this. It's all with all, most of the really weird liberal beliefs, especially.
Mhm.
It seems to be a failure in extrapolation.
Yeah, but as I said, they turn variables into constants because they have an ideological investment.
Hmm.
And that's what happens. You can't extrapolate well if you don't account for variables.
Yeah, yeah. It's central to the pro-choice perspective is the refusal to kind of extrapolate. Like, well, what's it going to be? Like there's
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's essential to all of those arguments. But
Yes,
what you said,
per capita and economies of scale. That's
mm,
the two things that, if you understand, you stop being a leftist. But no, we are not doing that.
and that one, what's her name? Is it Faith Farah, that girl that Andrew used to debate?
Sounds
Um,
familiar.
I don't know.
Um, she's a
I
kind of
can't deal with it.
yeah. I'm not that good with placing where people are from, but she looks kind of vaguely Middle Eastern, but she sounds American, and
Right.
she used to debate Andrew on a number of topics. She'd come on the Crucible back in
Is
the
she
early days.
like a
She's
Persian
like a
looking
porn
girl?
star or something, isn't she?
I think she might be an OnlyFans girl as well.
Something
Is
like
she
that.
skinny?
No.
Because I remember
Maybe, I don't
two.
know.
One is like rather voluptuous, and the other was a
No,
skinny.
she was like, yeah, she was well endowed.
Well, I saw her recently talking. Some guy who, but the guy didn't like Andrew, and obviously neither does she. And he was saying, you have to admit though, Andrew is a good debater. And in her answer, she said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, he's a good debater, but I don't see what the point in being a good debater is when the things that he's pushing for are so bad. The whole point of debate is to push good things."
Yeah,
And I just
but
thought that was so revelatory on how it is that she thinks, that what she thinks she's doing while debating, that she's pushing an ideology rather than working towards the truth.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've decided what's good and I have to
yes,
figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
yes.
So, and that shows you why they'll say anything, because that's what they believe they're doing. It's pure
That's part of.
Machiavellianism.
Yeah.
No, it's actually worse. It's because Machiavelli, although we sort of tar and feather him, he was writing for like defense of like his city-state that's
Right.
surrounded by very powerful entities. So he didn't write like do whatever you want, irrespective of consequences or whatever. Um, that's what I was laughing about. But it's more Marxism because Marx and this idea of historical materialism, it's like the truth doesn't matter. Like it's a scientific theory; it will happen. So you just need to facilitate it, right? So so Marx decided he has calculated how the world works, how humanity operates. So it's just about facilitating. Now he's wrong about basically everything. That
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But they don't care about truth. This type of Marxist.
Right.
I'm not trying to be postmodern. Not Jordan Petersoning it.
The damn postmodernists.
Yours is better than mine.
That's my first time ever trying. Actually, that went better than expected.
Yeah, the pitch is better with yours. I just get like the hue of the Kermit thing. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have decided what is right and it's just about establishing it, throwing it out into the world, I don't know. You can't really debate that because you will see. That's also what I talk about a lot. Uh, a thing is a dying trend when the only defense for it, if I really have to explain to you why X is wrong, right?
Mm,
That means
Right.
you don't have good standing.
Right.
Right? If I
Right.
have to explain to you why murder is wrong, like okay, but that just means you're presupposing it's wrong. And I keep having to give them like examples because they think, no, if you're a smart and moral person, you agree with me, and we bring humanity forward. I tell them, have you ever read about Assyria or Rome or whichever of the great empires? Right?
mm.
Niceness wasn't very common back then. Brutality was the modus operandi. And,
Right.
like technologically brutal. The Romans, especially, were good at calculating how to inflict as much pain and humiliation as possible before you die.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Counting how many lashes a human body can take before dying.
Incredible.
Right. And what, you're going to tell me Rome wasn't advanced? It took a millennium to sort of reestablish the level. So I'm so upset that everything is such slop.
Yeah. I actually found that while you were talking. I found that thing that I'm talking about. Let me see. Where is it? Where is it? I'm just figuring out how to get it. It looks like it's up on the screen. Is it up on the screen?
You're on the screen, I don't see it.
Okay, let's go to this mode here. Let's put it. That's not the one. Add to scene.
Maybe maybe it needs to be first in line.
Okay,
Is that how it works?
Maybe. Let's see. Let's see. This here.
Real pros over here.
Yeah, why is it not going on? I don't understand. Strange. Yeah, I was going to show that. Okay, I'll figure that out while I'm. So anyway, how do I do this? Okay, I'll just play the other one. Will I just play the other one because we're here now?
No, we might as well. So we're going to talk about some because Shane gave me massive amounts of notice. I had about an hour to think what we can react to. So the two big things that have been happening, aside from the Iran thing, is like this primary in New York with a socialist Muslim winning the Democratic primaries. And we're going to go into why, especially starting with this clip. But the second thing is the Ted Cruz interview. I don't know, Woody, if you saw that one.
Yeah, Ted Cruz with
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson, yeah.
So Shane, you know, I'm going to just call you Achan. I'm going to call you Shane because that's evocative of Shane in Irish.
Perfect.
But the boys cast, they had the clip.
Yeah.
You know them about Tucker Carlson saying, why is that? You know, that sort of. He said, all these like Republican war hawks, like they're all secretly gay. Why is that? so his style of comedy is sort of like, I mean, it's so perplexing. I don't know what you're talking about.
I love Jim Bob's impression of Tucker. I think might even be better than his Jordan Peterson at this point.
He can do the laugh. I can't.
He just that whole what is it? He always says. He says,
"You didn't really believe that."
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. You don't really believe that, do you? Like, yeah, it's so funny.
Huh.
All right, so let's watch this. This show. Actually, I saw like 30 seconds of this, and I was like, "What the?" I think my exact response was, "What the?"
The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Okay, Ms. Lander. Mr. Lander, sorry.
Boy, what Trump is doing to Canada, there's a lot of opportunities for us to partner better with them.
Ms. Ramos.
I'd love to meet Claudia Sheinbaum, but I'd probably head to Colombia to my parents' homeland.
Mr. Myrie.
I am the proud son of two Caribbean immigrants. I represent a robust Caribbean constituency. I'd like to go to the Caribbean as my first visit.
Mr. Cuomo.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my fourth trip to Israel, followed by my fifth trip to Ukraine, two of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and...
You're like, okay, this guy's based, and it's like, no, he's going to stay here, and he's going to stand up for the Jewish New Yorkers.
Damn.
It's such a.
I feel like I agree with him.
No. Let us play out a bit more.
Yeah, let me hear more.
Or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
No,
as a state with equal rights.
He won't, he
Not
won't
as a
say it
Jewish
has a
state.
right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very
And
clear
his
on that.
answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that very
That's what he
clearly.
was
Unlike
trying
you-
to say.
No. Unlike
No,
you, I
you
answer.
never-
Unlike
you
you, I
never
answer
said
questions
no.
very
Okay.
directly,
All right, I
and
think
I
we're
want to
clear.
be
You
very
answered-
clear.
you
I believe
answered-
every state should be a state of equal rights.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr. Blake, where would you go on your first foreign visit as mayor of New York?
My full name is Michael Alexander Blake. I'm named after Michael Manley Alexander Bustamante. So, of course, I'm going to go to Jamaica to mash up the place, my fellow patois Jamaicans out here.
Okay. Mr. Stringer?
Okay, you can solve it
It
now.
would be a
but-
great trip.
It would be a great trip.
What's
all
wrong
right,
with
move
what
on.
he said,
I'm
though?
sorry.
My goal would be
agree
to
with him.
take
I
my-
feel like based on what I heard, he's saying I represent the people of New York. Some of them are Jewish.
we're
if-
going to ruin him for you by letting
All right.
him speak what he's actually for.
All right,
But
all right.
this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. Because yes, absolutely. Why do I have the gay thing around my?
That was supposed to be for Woodfloor, and
Gay
it was between that and I thought maybe you could have lightning.
That's almost as cool as the hard rock intro. But so that should be the regular answer. What's New York has a foreign policy now? Is that what we're doing? I'm pretty sure it shouldn't. But you saw people are going, oh, I'm going over to where my parents are from. Because you know how it's a classic political thing. Someone said in the chat, all planned and actors, they're all actors, we'll get into it. But why is that a controversial answer? Because no one else was asked, do you believe Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state? Right?
Yeah.
What on earth does the mayor of New York have to decide on whether Israel exists and how it exists?
Right.
It has nothing to do with his prerogatives and his jurisdiction. So you'd expect that, but you see they're going for him.
Yeah.
And he ended up winning the primary, the Democratic primary. So that guy is now going to be representing the Democratic Party for November, for the mayorship of New York. And if you were on Twitter in the last couple of days, you will see that the Zio bots are not happy and issuing things like, I call upon all Jewish people to flee New York. Because now they're going to, I don't know, they're going to be put up in ghettos and stuff. So it's ridiculous. But if we're discussing why he won the primary, I'm going to guess that's a bit of it. That this right here was a bit of it. Because you're asking people who are desperate, because New York has a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. You're asking them potential mayor where he's going to have his first visit. Ridiculous.
But that was what stood out to me even more so than his answer about the whole video, is how intrinsic it seems to have become to American culture that they would have a leader whose loyalties are elsewhere.
Elsewhere, right? That's all I heard from everybody else.
Yeah, they're all just like, yeah, I'm going here and I'm going there, and I'm Jamaican and everything.
Yeah, bomboklat. But it's I'm not just singling out this for Israel, but as I said, it's going to Jamaica, Colombia, and stuff. You're going on a family vacation. That's what your first visit will be. Someone at least said Canada because that's a decent answer, right? It's close to New York, probably a lot of businesses operate from there. You can see that. But these people were visiting Ukraine. Again, foreign policy run by the mayor of New York. Not even the governor of the state, but the mayor of the city. So it's pathetic.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. Let me just. Oh yeah. Let's go back to that. Let me just see now. It's all about me. I am having I've never had this problem before. I'm having terrible trouble getting my screen shares to go up, and I don't understand why. It's just about me, guys. Let's see. What is going on here? Like it's just I've already done that. Well, I mean, it's not in the scene. I could get rid of it. Hold on. Let's get rid of it altogether and see. No, it's not that. And I see I don't like it thinks it's here, but it's not here. Yeah. What is going on here? If I hide the background? No. All right, this I don't know. This is bizarre. This is the same thing. I remember at the very start I couldn't get our hard rockin' intro to come up. I think there's some kind of problem here. Yeah, like what was the point? Um, there we go. Look, there's the hard rockin' intro with no sound. Yeah, I don't know why. I think I might have to. You guys can maybe you can just talk us through this, Posh, while I try and figure out what it is that's going on. So I'll put us back over this way. And I'll just try and figure out how to get it up. And if I can get it up, I can get it up. And you can kind of talk about what you saw or talk about this topic. Somebody said in the chat
that becomes a problem when you're over 40.
Because in America, even state and local elections are decided by allegiance to national politics. You could win a local election just by saying Trump is bad.
Yeah. Okay. I'll talk and Woody can chime in. You try to figure things out on the technical end.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a point at which demographics are trying to be appeased. That's obviously it. But I think it's overestimated how these things work, because this Mamdani fellow he's a socialist and a Muslim who supports like transgender children. So I'm not sure he would do very well in a Muslim country, but obviously did do well in New York. But when the polls were broken down demographically, he didn't win the poor people. He won over 100,000 per year. And he won the white vote, didn't win the Hispanic or the black vote. So once again, the most left-wing person does not win the demographics he purports to represent. Because I'm into these things, I know that in the primary for 2020, when you had Bernie Sanders, and he did well in the initial states, which are very, very majority white. The moment they got into like South Carolina, Biden blew him out. Again, these people, these progressives, they think they're saving like the minorities. The minorities don't support their platform. Right? They get some like socialist black guy, and they're like, this is what the blacks think. And even in polling, when you had like defund the police, remember that? I think it was over 80% of blacks will either keep it or increase the police. Because guess what? They don't like being shot and killed. They're probably
Right.
not big fans of that.
Right.
But if you're white and live in like an affluent neighborhood, so it's not even about like working class white people, of whom there are plenty, but you're like in a nice suburb, your concerns are mainly around things you see on the internet. When you see either police brutality or whatever. So when it becomes kinetic, when you have to interact with the actual thing, you start being a lot more realistic. And that's what is part of what's happened in New York. So again, this is celebrated as a progressive victory, and they didn't win the demographics that they claim were crucial to.
We can't hear you.
I found a workaround for my problem, so this will work now. I just
It's just based and won't play women.
Yeah, I just downloaded the video, so I'm playing it from my computer rather than screen sharing. It will not let me screen share for some reason. It's probably all the pornography. all the tabs.
What?
New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury.
Every politician says New York is the greatest city on the globe. But what good is that if no one can afford to live here? City Hall is engulfed in corruption.
Unscientific.
The cost of living is the real crisis.
Okay,
New Yorkers
Muslim?
are being crushed by rent and childcare. The slowest buses in the nation are robbing us of our time and our sanity. Working people are being pushed out of the city they built. A mayor could change this, and that's why I'm running. I'll make buses fast and free.
So I can just get where I'm going.
I'll make childcare available to all New Yorkers at no cost.
I want to raise my kid in New York.
And I'll freeze the rent for every single rent-stabilized tenant.
These Eric Adams rent hikes are killing us.
Life in this city doesn't need to be this hard. But politicians like Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo want it to be this way. They care about their donors. They care about themselves. They don't care about you, the working class who keep this city running. This campaign is for every New Yorker who believes in the dignity of their neighbors. And the government's job is to actually make our lives better. We can afford to bring down the rent, have world-class public transit, and make it easier to raise a family. We can do all of that and so much more because this is New York. We can afford to dream.
Yep, and there's the star. Communist. So, making the buses run on time. So he didn't say trains. Let's give him credit. Apparently that's fascism. But buses, now that's what you can do. So obviously you see here, I hate American political advertisements. Like, they're the most god-awful generic thing in the world. Like, obviously ours are too. But like the ones you see in Europe, it's like, oh, a few shots of like the fields and some basic nonsense, picture of them in a factory, like the candidate in a factory or something. But this like nice shot.
It was like
and
a fucking music video.
Yeah. And his mother just happens to be a producer, a rather affluent one.
Okay.
Not a rich socialist. That's never happened before. Right. So they're going to freeze rents, which has shown itself to be extremely effective in the past. Right. Because when again, this is basic economics. Didn't hear
I said
you.
you're joking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
For the
you
people
can
who don't
control
know.
prices, but once you force people to charge under market rates, they go down, they go bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So either that, or you're going to have to start supplementing the landlords because they don't go out of business. So it's all so stupid. But it's fascinating to me that this is so posh, if you will. This is like rich dweeb nonsense that we're forced to interface with. And I couldn't find the video of the third thing I wanted to show from him, so I'll have to explain it. But you can go ahead.
There are things that make New York City special. For me, it's the delis and bodegas. Habibi, could I get an egg and cheese on a roll with jalapeno?
One's the wine special coming up.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I've been removed from television for I got rid of all TV coming into my house, I think like 20 years ago at this point. But so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we don't have political ads in Ireland. Now maybe we do now, but we certainly didn't back then. So somebody Irish might say, "Are you mad?" Yeah, we do, but I'm pretty sure we don't. I'm wondering, is it like illegal or something? Because I've never seen a political ad that isn't American.
In Serbia, we have them for like 2 months before an election. Then you have like a cool-off period where they're banned for 2 weeks before an election. And again, they're just regular things, like seeing an ad for like a used car or something. So nothing like this.
They don't have that American pizzazz.
Yeah, and they don't last for 4 years God damn. In America, it seems like everyone's always running an election. Like from the moment you were elected, you're basically in campaign mode.
Well, are you getting American election like commercials in your country too?
No. I might see them when I watch American podcasters joking about something.
Oh yeah, everyone follows the American election.
Yeah, like things like I watch like Revenge of the Sis, and sometimes they'll show like Ted Cruz doing something on TV, and it's really like or like the Trump campaign, some ad they might have, or you guys have what Christmas in the White House, you know, so like podcasters will show that kind of stuff.
Right.
Small businesses employ nearly half of all New Yorkers in the private sector. They keep the city running, but the last 4 years have been hard. We've seen the dollar slice go extinct, storefront after storefront close, and had a mayor in Eric Adams who has ignored the struggles of small businesses. That's why as mayor, I'm going to make it faster, easier, and cheaper for small businesses to get started.
Is that the Always Sunny music?
I don't know.
Well, it's similar.
That's why as mayor, I'm going to make it faster, easier, and cheaper for small businesses to get started and stay open. First, we're going to cut fines and fees for small businesses by 50%. Regulations are important, but small businesses have to navigate more than 6,000 of them, with far fewer resources than the big chains. That's why as mayor, I'll appoint a mom and pop czar with the clear goal of making it easier to run a small business. $1,000 isn't a lot to our city government, but it can be make or break for a small business trying to get off the ground. Next, we're going to accelerate permits and applications. The mom and pop czar will coordinate with agencies to speed up turnaround times, cut red tape, and let New Yorkers start businesses sooner. Because you shouldn't have to fill out 24 forms and go through 7 agencies to start a barbershop. But most of all, we're putting our money where our mouth is by increasing funding for small business support programs with 500%. We're going to invest $20 million in our Business Express service teams, which pair small businesses with a city case manager that helps them navigate permits and regulations, as well as connecting them with programs that provide them with financial and legal assistance. Right now, only 3% of businesses are using these programs. We want that number to skyrocket. The only thing more New York than an egg and cheese are the small businesses that make them. Together, we can not only protect them, but encourage new ones to make a home in our city.
Egg and cheese. Is that a very New York thing?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, egg and cheese?
I think of...
I would imagine like egg and cheese on a bagel. That's very Jewish.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say
I would have thought pizza, maybe.
Yeah, like the new pizza slice.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. Or
really big containers of soft drinks. What are they?
Yeah, that's just American.
That's just American.
Okay.
But still, like I haven't had a Zohran special, but yeah. So without getting too much into like politics and stuff, so this is the type of nonsense. First of all, starts well, like cut regulation and stuff. That's very left wing, right? Because we know they hate regulations and red tape. But then he points a mom and pop czar. First of all,
that's what I was like. Is this a parody or something?
Yeah, it sounds like a joke because he starts talking about how he's going to increase funding. It's not going to put more weight on it, and then special appointees, which are going to end up, like getting like $500,000 a year or something. We know how that works, but you see, he's going to increase the government to make it easier. The thing is, bureaucracies exist to grow. Like they operate by how much they do, not what is accomplished, but how much work is necessary to get to a certain point. And they want it to be as much as possible for as little results as possible. That's the incentive for a bureaucracy. You want workflow, not results. So you always have an incentive to increase budget, right? Oh, if we had more money, we would actually have done it, but we didn't, so we couldn't.
Right.
And this is still, what's going on. But again, like, I hate these ads so much. And I couldn't, as I said, find a video for the third thing. He wants to open a city-run grocery stores across New York, because they can provide food cheaper by buying in bulk.
Yeah, because
Now you'd think someone
you'd
would
think
have thought of
Walmart
that
might have been doing that already.
Right.
because apparently Walmart was going to the store next door, buying it from there, and then reselling it. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my bloody life. He's going to buy in bulk. You go to we don't have Walmart here, but we have mega stores and stuff. They're basically throwing giant barrels of marinara sauce or something, like these big bulk things. And what's going to happen is, because he wants to open government-run stores, city-run stores, which will be exempt from taxes. So what's going to happen to the mom and pop shops? Because they can't compete now. They can.
That's what I was just thinking. It's completely antithetical to his position on small business. Hey, get up, friend, bud. Love you.
There's a direct contradiction between the two policies.
Yeah, I mean, it completely shuts down every small mom and pop grocery store.
Yes,
and then once you do that, then you can increase the price of the food.
And even from my perspective, as somebody who grows and sells food, one of the hardest things, is trying to compete with these stores who are relying on much, much larger farmers who get government subsidies, who can then sell for these crazily low prices. So
because it's economies of scale.
And everyone thinks, oh, it's great though, because I can get broccoli for like 69 cents. And you're kind of like, well, you're killing the ability to get local produce. Like that's gone.
Right.
And then you apply that to every other business, the guys who are trying to roast up, all the other local businesses. Sure, yeah, you could buy them all from outside Europe, and you can, you can import everything, and then there's nobody can have a business anymore. And now the prices go up.
Yeah, if you saw Clarkson's farm, like that show is genuinely could change Britain. But he showcased how to import a sausage. I don't know which exact type of sausage. To import it is around 20-something p. To produce it in Britain and buy and sell it, you have to buy it for over 80p.
Yeah.
So it's about 4 times cheaper to import than to produce locally.
Yeah.
And that's because you're importing from places that have cheaper workforce, obviously, but have less regulation. And the regulation you put on them, and not to mention, like in Britain, like the local councils are all mad, apparently. It's a prerequisite to be clinically insane to become part of a local council. And again, all showcased by Clarkson. And it's absolute madness, and you then destroy your own ability to produce food, and then now you're reliant on imports. And what happens when the supply chains collapse?
Yeah, and nobody's producing food anymore. It is insane. And these big supermarkets, like we don't have Walmart either, so Tesco or one of these, they can then loss lead on their produce as well. They can just set the produce even cheaper than what they buy it for. So then they know they'll get you on the Pepsi, or they'll get you on the whatever, the crisps, or whatever else you're buying. And they don't care if they're making a loss on the produce, because that goes bad anyway. So they need to just keep that moving.
That's the thing. It's a very perishable good. But you see how stupid it is. And I've compared on Twitter. I posted. I don't know if the guy will win. Like, there's a very solid chance he will. But if he manages to do that, it will be the same thing as what foreign aid does to Africa.
That's what I was literally about to say.
Yeah.
It sounds like the same problem as mission work, and completely undermining the local economy and their ability to actually make money. You just keep them poor.
Yeah. Which isn't an accidental byproduct, by the way. That's
right. Allegedly.
Allegedly. So you can't compete with free. No amount of cheap competes with free.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how I see it. Not as destructive because obviously it won't be free. But they've decided to undercut. Like small shops already can't compete with the mega shops.
Yeah.
They can't do the scales that the big ones can.
Mm-hmm.
So mom and pop shops are already, I hate that phrase so much.
It's so annoying.
But we're here now. We do what we can. But the mom and pop shop already has to sell at higher prices than a mega market. Now you're introducing someone that can go even cheaper because they can't, they don't have to pay taxes.
Right.
So you've made the problem worse.
Yeah.
And what will happen is, like, the government stores will be horrible, but you will have more wipeout of small to medium-sized businesses, leaving only the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They already have a lot to say, as you said, Shane. Sorry, Khan. You already have them have enormous leverage in setting the price. And now they're going to have even more.
Yeah.
So once again, socialism comes in to save capitalism.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to a much larger farmer because, you know, what I do is I try and sell directly to people.
How tall is he?
But he was explaining to me, he was saying this to me because I was explaining my model and how it works, and it is growing and it's working. People do want to buy what I have, but he was saying no. You just grow a field of whatever broccoli, and then you sell it all in one, and it's the subsidies. He says you got to get your grants, you got to keep on top of this. He says, you know, I've got basically a receptionist, and they're just doing paperwork, researching subsidies, researching grants, and that's the profit. All you got to do is break even on the food, or even make a loss on it. It's all just okay. You get your fencing grant in, and then you know, and it's just blah, 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 blah. So it's like they're managing bureaucracy. That's what farmers do now.
Yeah,
and then
and everyone gets to be taxed in order to first fund the subsidies, and then all the bureaucracy required to enact them. So yeah, great job, everyone.
Yeah, it's all coming out of everyone's pocket anyway. You're still paying for the food, but yeah, it's so
stupid. I impossible. Everyone thinks everyone's stupid. No. As I said, bureaucracies know what they're doing. It's just counterproductive for everyone else. So that's where we are. We're back to, and this guy was endorsed by AOC. That's a big deal. Who was very organic and not chosen, you know, by a group for an actor's position. And certainly didn't sell out on basically everything that she promised to the progressives. Did you see that? This was from over a year ago. Like in Congress, when Nancy Pelosi came over and started shouting at her and leaves, and then AOC votes the way Nancy wanted, and they show her just crying. Nancy Pelosi, I have a respect for that woman. I mean, the gall to just come out blasted drunk, obviously, like Yeltsin.
Like Yeltsin.
Go and slap down like a pretty prominent congressman. Make her cry. It's like a boss move.
Kamala Harris was similar in my mind, like similarly drunk, not quite as drunk.
No, but she didn't have the energy. First of all, Nancy Pelosi is like 150 years old or something.
Yeah.
But she has that way of talking like a witch. But Kamala was more like hungover talk than drunk talk.
Yeah. Maybe had a mimosa for breakfast to get past it.
Yeah. So basically, Russia is a big country, and Ukraine is a smaller country. That's a quote. It's just, what's going on?
Yeah. It's funny times that we're living in. Funny times.
I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm just along for the ride, basically. I don't know how much we plan on going. We could do some Ted Cruz if you want.
And what do you want to do? Are you nearly ready to go, Woody, as you're now known?
You let me know. You want me to jump off?
No. I didn't mean like that. I mean, how much more time have you got?
Yeah, I've got time. Let me see. I have a appointment at 4:30, so that's like 3 hours. So I'm open.
Okay, you're open. Okay, I've probably got. Let me just look at the time here. 5:30. I'd say I've got me. I could probably go up until the end of this hour. An extra 10, 11 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So do you want to get into Ted Cruz then?
Yeah. So go to Tucker Carlson's. We'll review just a few shorts because it's how could you not know that?
What do you think? What do you think about the question? How many people are in Iran? And
that's such a bloody crucial question. I've seen some people whom I actually like. They say this wasn't pertinent. What are you talking about? How is it not pertinent? The size. If he guessed like 10 million fewer or more, okay, you're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
But to not know means like you don't know if it's 20 or 90 or 150 million. If you just don't even have a guess. How is that not important if you're deciding to overthrow a regime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was what he said. Go on.
I was gonna say how many. I don't know. That's probably not appropriate. Never mind.
I can guess where. As soon as how many and millions are mentioned.
Are you going to get into the cookie question?
Yeah. How many cookies were baked? Yeah, exactly.
How many Peter pies?
Okay. Once again, because I'm going to have to solve this issue between streams, Bosch, but I don't know. I can't share screen, so I'm downloading here.
Okay.
But I'll have it now. I'll get the first one up.
Just the size.
Are you sure that your Kofu link is working? Because I was trying to get into it.
co-fi.com / the Baron and the Redneck. Yeah, that should work. The Baron and the Redneck.
Like. There's not like something I can push. I have to like physically go there.
Yeah. Although, the link doesn't work. Yeah, it's going well. I'm just going to see what percentage are we. We're at 0% now towards our goal.
Will it like automatically update?
Yeah, it'll automatically update, and there's even text to speech. There's even text to speech and everything. But so I was waiting to see if that would work. I wasn't sure if the text to speech would work.
Well, listen, the algorithms aren't going to be kind on us for having half a year of channel and 5 streams. You didn't even manage 1 a month.
Yeah, well, I'm on the case. We're gonna get, and Jim Bob's actually coming on hopefully next Friday.
I talked to him yesterday.
He seems up for it. Here we go. He looks. You don't really believe that, do you?
Live in Iran, by the way. I don't know the population at all. No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? What's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country.
Republicans are divided on what to do about Iran, and President Trump is caught in the middle of it. He is hearing from all factions of his party. Members are directly making their case to the president, and at this point it's still unclear which side of his party he's ultimately going to lean towards.
Iran with a nuclear weapon is a threat not only to Israel but to us, and 4 presidents have promised to make sure that Iran never had a nuclear weapon. I think it will be Donald Trump who delivers on that promise.
And then on the other side of the party, you have isolationist right-wing Republicans like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's been messaging with the president telling him to stay out of another foreign war. She told CNN in our reporting, quote, "We have all been very vocal for days now, urging, let's be America first, let's stay out."
Okay, I am still here. You can talk away.
Amen.
You're much more handsome that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Population size itself is important, but not as important as the follow-up question, which is what is the ethnic mix-up?
Right.
With both Iraq, now I didn't know this in real time, having been 9 years old. I wasn't very good with geopolitics, but as I studied later, I was in high school when Libya was overthrown, and I did know things about Libya. Like you have basically 4 major tribes because they also have tribal divisions. In Iraq, it was more like 12. But you not only have tribal divisions, you have ethnic divisions, and you have sectarian divisions. And guess what happens when you remove the central authority? It's exactly these seams which burst. And what is Libya now? It's a failed state. What is Syria now? It's a failed state. So what happened with Iraq? You got ISIS. Yeah, well, there's a great upgrade from Saddam Hussein to ISIS. So that's why it's so important. And Iran is about 60% Persian, which means it's just over half of the population is Persian. As far as predominantly Shia, that's about a third of Iran is Shia. A third is atheist, by the way. And the rest is divvied up mostly amongst Sunnis, Sufis, and then Zoroastrians and Christians. Right? So you have a third of a country that is Shia. Now that is the big part of the argument for wanting to overthrow the Ayatollah, right? But that doesn't mean people are just going to take it. And one thing I can't explain to the neocon mind is that it's or any revolutionary's mind, because neocons are born out of Trotskyism. You can far more easily agree on something to oppose it rather than what to do afterwards. Okay? So I can unite with the left on a lot of things. I'm very anti-war. I can campaign, if I was some American politician, I would gladly campaign with progressives on being anti-war. But let's say we are anti the current government and we take up arms and we overthrow them. And now it's time to establish an order. Well, guess what? We have not just incompatible, but opposing, sorry, opposing views of what should be done affirmatively. And that's happened in the French Revolution. That's happened in the October Revolution. Actually, first the February Revolution, but then culminating in October Revolution. What happens is you then start seeing problems with implementation, and then everyone has to start accusing the other one of being just like the previous guys. So when you had the French Revolution, you overthrew the monarchy and the nobility. Great. What happened? You got a republic and a government that slaughtered more people in a couple of years than the monarchy did in centuries. Why? Because now you have to implement this thing. And they had their own militias. They started killing everyone. As things weren't improving, they were actually getting worse. You just have to decide, we are not radical enough until you get to what's called the Montagne, right? Hello. La Montagne, all right, which are like the most radical people, like led by Robespierre. And they started just executing everyone. And all of the things they achieved, like you're no longer able to accuse someone because of what their son did, right? Because the monarchy introduced that not too long before. And they brought up bringing that back in worse condition. Your neighbor did something, so you're to, right? So they not only did they not accomplish anything, in the end, it was more brutality. You can look it up. There's La Terreur Blanche, the White Terror. Not only the brutality of it, but the fact that they set everything back and ended up in an empire under Napoleon.
Yeah.
So that's your achievement. The Tsarist regime wasn't a fraction of repressive as the Soviet regime was. Not to mention the famines, not to mention the gulags and everything. So it's fascinating to me that they have nothing to appeal to, but, well, I remember regime change working in Germany. Oh, really? So if we're overthrowing the Ayatollah of Iran, we're not going to compare that to like the 30 years of previous 30 years of operations similar to this in the Middle East. We're going to compare it to mid-century Germany that ended up being occupied by 4 different powers. Unbelievable how the simpletons that we have to deal with is just infuriating.
It's of the time, isn't it?
I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel.
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
To be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen.
Not a whole lot. Okay.
I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC.
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable.
You don't really believe that, do you?
You don't really believe that, do you? They're effective at lining his pockets to make sure that he, has their best interests.
They're even more effective at primarying anyone who steps out of line.
Right.
So it's called the American-Israeli Political Action Committee. Yet you're saying they don't work for Israel. Why is that?
It's very the special relationship. The special relationship is very odd.
Special education.
It's such a weird thing to see from the outside. Like, what's going on? Like, why does it work? Why do sort of, especially boomers, I guess, and boomer conservatives, why is this special relationship with Israel so important to American boomer conservatives?
Because of the evangelical voting bloc.
Right.
That's the biggest reason.
They've been convinced that the state of Israel is the same Israel of the Bible.
Yeah.
That's because of dispensationalism.
Right.
So remember Andrew's debate with Ridvan, apostate prophet? He somehow quoted the part I was helping Andrew prepare with, where they say, like, they're cut off from the tree, the olive tree. That's what St. Paul analogizes to. Says these are cut off for their disbelief in the Messiah, and Gentiles are grafted in.
Right.
So it means they're not part of Israel. And Jesus said, from east to west, men shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, yet the children of the kingdom will be cast out. What do you think that means? What do you think that means?
We're Israel.
Yes, the Orthodox Church is Israel.
We are Israel.
Because Israel was always about being the congregation of God, not about magic blood.
Yep.
And I'm preparing to do a stream on my channel about like a full prep work to equip people to deal with any manner of Christian Zionism, not just what is called Christian Zionism, because there's a type of thing, like a trademark. It's sort of like saying Christian Science, that's a movement. It's not a scientist who's Christian, from all sorts of parts of the Bible. But basically to say, all of these people who are saying like God will protect Israel, God wiped them out multiple times, almost completely. All about being for disbelief. There's a point when they split right into the northern and southern kingdom. The northern kingdom had about 10 of the 12 tribes. Wiped out completely.
Buzz tells a story about reading his daughter the Bible when she was younger. I think she was probably 7 or 8 at the time, and he says he got the Action Bible. Have you heard about the Action Bible? It's like a.
Does it look like a comic book? Or
It looks
something?
like a comic book, but it's for
Yeah.
kids, right?
God.
Yeah.
Anyway, Buzz got that back when he was a bear, right? Buzz got that, and he was reading it to his daughter, and then he was reading, I think, a kid's Bible to her at nighttime, and he always tells this kind of funny story about how something would happen, and the Israelites would make a deal with God, and then Buzz would say to her, "What do you think's going to happen next?" And she goes, "They're going to break the deal." And he's like, "Yeah."
And here's a massive thing, and I will expand on it on my stream when I have all the time in the world to yap. Promises to Abraham, like Genesis 15:18, are not just to Israel. They're to Abraham and his descendants. That includes Ishmael. That includes not just Jacob, but Esau as well. That includes Midian. And there's even promises they're not directly descendants of his, but to like the Moabites. Moab was the son of Lot, nephew of Abraham. So, as I said, not a descendant. But, when they're settling the area promised to them, and you can look this up. This is from Joshua 21, final few verses. I can't remember the exact numbering. Says they conquered all that was promised to them. And that was centuries before they got Jerusalem. So if you want to get real biblical and real technical, that's what happens. Why? Because all the other lands were already occupied by descendants of Abraham. As I said, you can Google the map. But what happens is they fall into idolatry. So God says, yeah, you're not upholding your end of the covenant. So he wipes them out. Israel ends up moving even to those parts. Then it breaks up into north and south. Then he wipes out the north, gives the south over to Babylon, and only a few of them return back. This is not to even mention like things with Ahab and Jezebel and stuff like that. So he keeps wiping them out almost completely, just leaves like a faithful remnant and then keeps increasing them. And from this, dispensationalists conclude, no, they reject Jesus. And the Bible says if you don't have the Son, you don't have the Father. That's not what it meant. What it meant was the Rothschilds would create a nation state, and we have to do whatever they want.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's like, but he has a separate covenant with them. That's what you're not understanding, Bosh.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah. You mean a different dispensation, perhaps?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You could call it that. Yeah.
Yeah, some do. Yeah, so I don't know. There have been positive things happening recently, possibly more peace. We will see, especially with Ukraine. It's quite volatile. It's just taking a battering at this point. It's tragic what's going on.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The Iran thing didn't blow up. Israel took quite a beating from those rockets, although if you listen to Western media, Israel, by the way, this whole time had much clearer covering of what's going on than you find in Western media. It's all been glazed over, so they're more honest with their people than politicians in the West are about events in Israel.
It's because Protestants are dumb. Dumb. It would mess with the prosperity gospel in their mind. If they saw Israel getting a smacking, they'd be like, "Hold on, how can that happen? How can that happen?"
Yeah. Are you saying God isn't on our side? No, there was a Turkish. You can find the video, like a Turkish guy, a politician in their parliament, saying, "And Allah will punish Israel for what they're doing." And he drops dead of a heart attack in the middle of the speech. Like, oh God, they're going to go all over this one, aren't they? So there are.
But isn't it true though in Israel that like actually a significant portion of the population is Orthodox?
I don't know if.
I think the Jerusalem church is like one of the biggest
landowners
dioceses that there is.
No. Well, they have a lot of jurisdiction. but I don't know how significant the proportion of the population it is.
Let me find out.
It's very important, holds a lot of Jerusalem, as I think is the second biggest landowner in Jerusalem. The Serbian Orthodox Church used to own the house where the Last Supper was held, but it was destroyed in a crusade. That's a bit of a fun fact.
It's about 1.9% of Israel's population is Christian.
Oh, is that it?
1.9.
Well, a lot of the people that they're genociding are those Christians, right?
No, a lot of Palestinian Christians fled when Hamas came into power. There are still there about 20,000 or so. I think. How could you not know that? Well, but it's not substantial. People overplay that, like people who have like derangement syndrome about Israel. I don't. I analyze them very rationally. Praise when it's worthy, and condemn when it's condemnable.
Right.
Yeah, but they took quite a beating. That's why I think the whole thing stopped, because they are a small country. There's about 10 million people or so, about a pretty substantial Muslim population. And then that's, even to exclude like the West Bank and stuff. And a lot of Jews have fled during this war. So their economy is not doing well. And there's only so much you can do to sustain attrition when you're a small country. So that's why I'm slightly optimistic that there's chances things calm down, normal relationship to normalize, and for the Abraham Accords and stuff like that was stopped by October 7th. So we will see. There's positive changes in Ireland. Shane sent me that article that the Serbian Orthodox Church is buying a Catholic church.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. And I said, as Serbian influence grows over in Ireland, you will see Ireland become more like us. So you will be an island full of violent drunks who hate everyone. Wait a minute. We already have a lot in common, is what I'm saying. So yeah, Orthodoxy is growing by all accounts. So I'm very happy. Just yesterday, I sent you the screenshot. Someone told me they became Orthodox by watching Jim Bob and that period when I was constantly on his streams. So it got through my Protestant brain, and I was like, okay. So it's not, my essential services aren't limited to just me calling things gay, which is pretty important. And I take
big part of what you do.
Yes. But you see, I get messages like that. Jimbo gets more, and he sends me over like a screenshot when it mentions me. So there are positive things in the world. We're not just here to doom. What do you say? Not doom scrolling. That you have to do doom scrolling, but blackpill. Yeah, we're not here to blackpill people. We're not apocalyptic death cults in Orthodoxy, because things can happen that none of us could ever expect, both good and bad. So stay prayed up is apparently is the new phrase, and I don't like it.
Stay prayed up.
Yeah, sounds like something an influencer would say, and I see Father Josiah Trenham say it. I'm like, no. Yes.
This is Posh responding to Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, you can see the only Cyrillic letter is the letter next to the hour. So like 4 and then chas.
Oh yeah. I just presumed your screen was broken on your phone when I saw that writing. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it looks like a flipped H, lowercase h. But yeah, so we have good things happening. Sorry?
Orthodox is exploding, I feel like.
I I'm not an optimist, but I'm pleasantly surprised.
I'm telling you, we can't even fit more people in our church.
Yeah. That's what's white pilling me. Like all the people showing up. Like we have
Oh, it's
30
crazy. The problem
catechumens.
is it's mostly men though. There's no women.
I have heard Matthew Green. That's his surname. I can't remember the name of the woman. Frederica Matthew Green. I think that's her name. And she's a convert. Her husband became a priest, I believe. But he converted first, and she was very much against it. But
That's what I found.
Over time, she fell in love with like the community and stuff, and then things kicked in, because I think we as men approach things on average more through like debates and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Which can, as we talked about earlier in the stream, which can go very much awry.
Right.
But women have connections with like emotional connections and friendships and stuff that they form in the church. So
That's what I'm working on with my wife. You know? So I mean my wife still does not attend regularly. I'm able to find ways to get her there, right? It's my birthday, babe. Come to church, right? Father's Day.
For your birthday, come to liturgy with me.
Oscar, right? I want you to come to Easter with me. Come for my birthday. Come for Father's Day, right? So I get her there. But yeah, that's like what my hope is like through the relationships and finding friends and the women there that will bring her there. But I have found that when talking to the men, generally they come to the church first, and it takes quite a while to get their wife on board. Actually, Deacon Ken at St. Mary's, he refused to actually join the church until his wife would come with him, and he waited 10 years.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a process. I've heard people text me privately about the fact, like, I'm in, but the wife not thrilled about it.
No.
Luckily for me, Irene's pretty much on board. She's ready to go. It's just the having 5 kids part for her. Like
in that marriage, you were the libtard.
It's tough. But you know what? And like when my wife does come, her presence makes my kids more whiny, and you know what I mean? Like it's different when they're just with me. I have them pretty well trained at this point, and then when she comes, that element of mom being there, it brings the wine out of them, and the misbehave for sure.
Yeah, it'd just be this church here. This is the church that Buzz attends. Actually, it's the Russian Orthodox Church in Dublin.
See, that's what I was expecting to find.
Yeah, it's really central. Like it's a important church in Dublin.
Yeah,
so
you wouldn't find this type of church in Russia, because this is very Western European.
Right, it looks like a European castle, like Gothic castle.
Yeah, so I'm guessing also a former Catholic.
Of course,
right.
Church that was converted to an Orthodox one.
Right.
And this is a pretty big one, considering all things considered. So yeah, happens all the time. Like Shane, you and I will be doing a stream on like Catholicism and Irishness. But yeah, you see, it's not just about. They tried to make that argument not too long ago. How everything is about.
That's the inside.
That's the inside of the church.
Oh wow, dude, that's beautiful.
And over on the left, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you? No. But over on, sorry, not on the left, on the very right, there's an icon there in a little stand. You can see there's one on the left as well. And the icon on that side has a miracle associated with it, which it cried during COVID when the churches were locked down.
Yeah, that happens.
And the tears are on the inside of the glass. You can still see you can still see the blue streak going down. Yeah, and it's just there.
Sometimes it's myrrh, sometimes it's like red.
It's blue. It's blue. It's like a blue line going down his face, and it's also on the inside of the glass.
Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy. Yeah, I had something else I wanted to say. I just don't remember off the top.
You can notice no pews.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. That's the first thing I noticed, right?
That's a great church. I'm planning to start attending the Serbian as my sort of my main my main one, because it's mostly because it's closer.
Right.
But this one is great. Like, it is really, really great. And
Do you have an Antiochian nearby?
no, I don't.
I know people really are like romantic about like the idea of Russian Orthodox, but I don't know.
Well,
It just doesn't make
that's because
sense.
it's the biggest one. So when you type in Orthodox liturgy, you're going to get like services from the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow with a professional choir. And Russia has
Right.
always produced magnificent music. You know, and then all the deacons and priests are highly trained. You know, so one with the server with the patriarch are going to be very good at singing and stuff, and it's very well organized. You know, so that's what people get. And then again, Russian and Slavonic music is closer to the ear of a Westerner than Greek musicology would be. So, you know, they on an aesthetic level, it speaks more to a regular Westerner. That's what I think, at least. That's my diagnosis of it. But yeah, so a lot of people attend Antioch. I think Jim Bob is in an Antiochian. Andrew is certainly. I know Jim Bob switched.
Antiochian.
Yeah,
I mean, I find that it's like, okay, if their position is going to conform to the culture that they're in the most, I mean, that's what I attribute to the church I go to bursting at the seams the way that it is. Whereas like the Russian is the most like against like changing the culture. You know what I mean? And almost like where I've even heard people say like when you show up and it's like, oh, you're not Russian. You know what I mean? Like you're not one of us.
I
It's like
think the biggest
same
ones,
Eucharist, right?
and I'm
You don't
against.
know that's what I'm saying. Like to the point of like, yeah, I'm not Russian, but we all share the same Eucharist. We're all
Almost like that's communion,
right.
but I've heard that's more of a problem with Greeks.
I've heard that with Greek too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Greeks not the most humble of people. They're like the French of Eastern Europe.
Right.
And I'm not saying they don't have a reason to be very proud of their heritage, both in terms of orthodoxy and prior to that, and the amount of impact that the Greeks have had on history is massive. But God is not going to be happy if you're going to stand in front of Jesus, and no amount of based Spartans is going to save you then.
Right. No, I remember what I was gonna say. Okay, so when I first gave my life to Christ, right? I was all drugged out, whatnot, okay? And I went to my grandfather and I said, hey, like, what do I need to do? Go home, get on your knees, give your life to Christ. I did that. So at that point, before that happened though, like I was in bed high at the time, I'm sure, and the Holy Spirit like lifted me up out of my bed and told me, okay, the path that you are on, if you do not change your path, you will die. Right. So that is when it was like, okay, I got to change something. But it still took a long time for that change to happen. So I was still struggling. Went to my grandfather, told me this, did that, had a really crazy experience like I was talking about, right? I was flooded by the Holy Spirit, crazy experience. So then later, still not completely off the path, I was, talking to God and asked why am I still like struggling the way that I am? And I feel like spoke to me through a TV show, because like right when I asked that on the TV show that was on the TV that I was not really paying attention to this point, it was Mr. Robot. And that show is kind of like Fight Club, where like he's schizophrenic and he sees his dad, right? But his dad's dead, right? So he sees him, but nobody else does. He says, why can nobody else see you? And his dad says, when people see you, they see me. You know what I mean? And it was like, holy shit, right? Like I am now professing Christ, but I'm living in a way that is not reflective of Christ, right? So then, okay, now all that to say, now I'm in the Orthodox Church, right? And I want my wife to come with me. And like we were talking about earlier, it's a process, right? Like you are not just radically changed overnight. The Orthodox Church is a hospital, and it changes you over time, right? But I'm a man, and you know, I still am falling short regularly with my wife, and every time that I am falling short, right, she doesn't see me, she sees the Orthodox Church. You know what I mean? So it's like, I maybe I'm wrong. This is the conclusion that I've come to, though, is that it's like I am, you know, in my manhood, a negative reflection, and she associates that with, you know what I mean, my downfall, my faults, and that is like something that is builds resentment in her towards the Orthodox Church. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I don't know.
people can start overdiagnosing. It's a human thing to do. So you can't just say,
What, on my part?
no. Saying if she starts associating everything, like that's what happens, you know, when your friend, let's oversimplify, your friend gets a girlfriend, and now you think, you don't like her, right? And then every time he does something cringe, you're like,
Yeah, right.
That's
Your
that
girlfriend's fault.
blasted woman. so yeah, you focus on something, and if you are suspicious of it, you know, you're going to attribute every negative thing to that.
Right.
It's a very human thing to do.
Right.
But
yeah,
it's also no excuse for us to be poor representatives of orthodoxy.
No, no. But it's also like you have to have the understanding that it's like this is a process. You know what I mean? So like anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's too personal.
No. Share as much as you're comfortable with. Shane and I don't mind.
Right.
Autists.
Right. From, you know what I mean? Like to her, it feels like I'm faking, right? Because I show up to church and I present myself well.
Did you have the beard?
You know
This
what I
is an
mean?
honest question. Did you have the beard before Orthodoxy?
I've had the beard for probably 7 years.
Okay. Because
no, men should have beards.
I want to.
You know, in due time. How many kids
me.
do you have?
None.
It's funny.
I could not grow a beard until I had kids.
Is that so?
That is so. I do think that there is something to that. I do. But yeah, like I heard a joke one time that resonated with me. What do you call a man without a beard?
A woman?
What?
A woman.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I started out everything, all my masculinity points into the voice, and nothing was left over for facial hair. I don't know if it was worth it.
Right. I did not grow the beard because I became Orthodox.
Yeah, that would have been
Orthodox because of all the beards.
It's funny. My beard has been getting shorter and shorter as I become more Orthodox. It was much longer before I was Christian, but
dude, come on.
Do you have less beard as you have more children? Now we're trying to establish, you know,
a consistency.
Yeah, whether there's
right. It was just a random thing. I cut mine off a while ago because I got annoyed with it. I was like, I'm just tired of this.
That is a problem. The food in it, you know, you're eating and it's like your beard's like in there with the food, and you're like, gosh darn it.
And it's all. I'm not very good at in my day-to-day life. I'm not very good at preening or sort of taking care of my appearance.
Luckily, I'm a blue collar guy, right? So
yeah.
Like, as long as I can show up and get the floor done right, they don't. Really
I'm always like my hair's always usually like it's freshly cut now, but usually it's a mess, and my beard was really bad.
Yeah,
really bad, like most of the time. Before I'd stream, I'd quickly brush it maybe and put some oil in it or something. But most of the time, it was just like. Like, you know, and it was, and yeah, so I just decided, I just look like a mess all the time. That's why my hair's like I cut my hair so short. Because then I don't have to brush it.
You have longer till you have to do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
I had long hair, and I cut it short a couple of years ago, and I realized having short hair is actually more work than having long hair. The only thing that's easier is how quickly it dries.
Right.
and especially I have very, very soft hair, like silky. So combing is a bloody chore. Like, this is I combed before we started. And this
we have different. This is like a. It depends what you mean by long.
Yeah, right.
Because
No,
mine's
I had
pretty
long-
short, and I don't have to comb it at all. And let me tell you that.
Yeah, yeah,
I
but
look, I look in the mirror approximately once a week.
Right.
Like,
It's Sunday.
So
Got
yeah,
it.
I too look like a savage basically, and then I speak the way I speak. That's part of why I'm posh redneck, right? Everyone just says posh, they leave out the redneck part. I just don't care. Am I presentable? Yes. Am I clean? Yes. That's about it. That's as much effort as I'm willing to put into my looks.
But you present on Sunday, right?
Present? What do you mean?
Right. Like, okay, I wake up, usually I just throw a hat on, throw on my dirty clothes, but on Sunday I do make a point. I shave Sundays, I comb Sunday, I wear a collared shirt Sunday.
I don't have
Now,
to
I
do a
don't
lot
dress
of
in a
shaving.
I don't wear a full suit like a lot of people do at the church, but compared to what I wear every week, it's like I do
Oh yeah,
dress
yeah.
nice
I
with a
dress
full
decently,
shirt. Yeah.
like a shirt and a proper shirt, like
Right.
no shorter, things. Even in summer, which is
Right.
hellish. I remember the first time I was a reader, and summer came around, and I would wear like a white shirt, black pants, and like dress shoes, and then have Sakari on over me, and I was like, I thought, well, at least I'll die in the altar of the church.
Right.
I get some points for that, I hope.
Yeah.
And I stopped whining when I realized, like, look at what my priest is wearing.
Right.
So he's not
wow,
just
yeah.
just the Sakari on, and then everything else on top.
Right.
So I stopped complaining.
You can't complain. I mean, look at what Jesus went through. That was like a revelation for my wife on Pashka. Like, as we're walking around, circles around the building, she had that revelation. We're like all carrying candles, and I'm like, we're trying to cart 5 kids, and it's like, this sucks. But imagine what Jesus went through carrying that damn cross, all lashed, and it's like we have no place to complain.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's what I try to remind myself of: other people suffering, and then especially the suffering of Christ.
Yeah.
But also to not just let myself do what the West did and over-focus on that, but remember that he did it voluntarily and crushed it
Right.
in the
Right.
end. So
Right.
that's our hope in the resurrection, and in him specifically. So yeah, I whine about minor things. I'm not the type of person who whines about very important things. I tend to just will trod through this, but then like an earphone dies, and I'm like, oh God in heaven.
Lose your mind, right? Right. So, like, have you? Another thing is like the changing of like what you say in different seasons. Where like right now it is, Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be. Right, but then like during Pashka, it's Christ has risen. What do you say after that? Now I forgot it. Right.
Yeah. So we. There are multiple things that maybe it's different in the Antiochian. So the regular one is Christ is risen. That's all year round, basically. But for Christmas, we say Christ is born.
Okay.
Truly he is born.
Truly he is born, right. Christ is
yeah,
risen. Truly he is risen.
Now, I don't know what exactly you say in English at Epiphany, but we say, Christos se javi. Christ has appeared to us, right? Or, I'm not sure what exact phraseology you use.
Right.
But so there are specific days we use Christ is in our midst all the time. We have those familial baptismal saints, right? So you break the bread with the priest, and then the man of the house breaks the bread with the priest, and you turn it around and say, Christ is in our midst. The priest says that, and you respond, he is and ever shall be, and then you kiss the bread, and you do that 3 times. So there are different minor, what we call lowercase t traditions that vary from denomination to denomination, not denomination, heaven forbid, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So there are things that are specific to the Orthodox Serbian Church, Russian Church, the Greek Church, etc. That probably an average American Protestant. I'm starting to lose my train of thought. Convert to Orthodoxy is going to be more familiar with that than I am, because guess what churches we have in Serbia?
Serbian.
Yep. So there are a few, Greek and Russian ones. There are a few in like the northeast of the country that are Romanian, because it's on the border of Romania, and they're Serbian on their side, right, where there are Romanian populations, right? But I'm from like southeast of Serbia, so no other ones here.
Right.
It's just Serbian. So I haven't had contact with it, and I don't travel.
Right. So that's like, again, like one of those things where it's like I just assume that translated across, but it's like that's been a fun one where it's like we keep like through all these seasons, like what we say changes, and then like just as soon as I have like memorized what the one is, to where it's like I automatically say it, they change it again, right? And like now they say a new one, and it's like, okay, this is what you say after. It's like, man, last week I just heard it,
Yeah,
changed it on me again.
You also have standard ones like God be with you and with your spirit.
Right.
That's one. Those are ones that are so old that we share them with like Catholics and stuff.
Right.
I mean, they also say Christ is risen, Christus surrexit, right? But Deus vobiscum et cum spiritu tuo, right? And with your spirit, right? So you have that in Church Slavonic, in Greek, in whatever language you want. But these are traditional greetings. I don't know if you know, goodbye is short for God be with you.
I think I have heard that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Lots of things like that exist. So I can't advise you exactly on how things work in the Antiochian tradition.
Right.
And I'd certainly hate to give you the wrong advice.
Right. No, there's things that that's another thing that has been like really frustrating actually for my wife and me too. Is when you start talking, right? Like, okay, we're here hamming it up, right? So then I may want to ask you something about it. Well, like, okay, like my wife is talking to a woman that we're close to at the church and kind of asking about it over coffee or whatever, and then getting, that's a question that you need to ask Father Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that can be frustrating for somebody who's trying to learn about it, right? And it's like, well, why can't we just talk about the thing? You know what I mean? So I know that's like, that can be frustrating for people sometimes.
Well, especially catechumens aren't exactly equipped to answer all the questions, because if they were, they wouldn't be catechumens.
Well, this is even Orthodox, you know what I mean? But it's just like having, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I just generally qualify like to the best of my understanding. But if you want the official answer, you need to talk to this person.
Yep.
That's
part of their job. That's why they go to seminary.
Right.
And it's not enough. You can't just show your watch time for Jay Dyer's streams. That's not going to qualify you, as great as it is.
Right, I've got 10,000 hours of Jay Dyer under my belt. Okay, I know a thing or two.
Yeah, you bring up, you share around the parish the copies of what was it? Decoded? I'm missing it.
Oh, maybe. You're talking about like a Jay Dyer book?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Damn it, I can't even shill for them.
What is it called?
Because I just don't watch films. Okay? I've watched probably
Esoteric Hollywood, isn't that what it's called?
Esoteric Hollywood.
There we go, yeah.
So, yeah, I watched probably more reviews of films than I watched films. Like from Jay. I just don't know the film. I find out what happens in the films by him mentioning it.
All right, guys. So I said I'd give 10 minutes, and it's been 45. So
yeah, we're very good with time.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get going. Things to do, places to be, people to see.
Yeah,
I appreciate you having me on.
It was fun.
Absolutely.
Yes. Shout out to my family at St. Mary's.
I thought you were
Love
going
you
to say.
guys.
I thought you were about to say shout out to my fans there.
No.
No, he doesn't let them have any praise, so they keep,
Right.
craving approval.
Yeah,
Very manipulative.
All right, guys. Posh, I'll see you next Friday.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll have Jim Bob on then. I'm live on Tuesday or Tuesday if you're in America.
Tuesday.
Tuesday if you're in England. But and I have Church of the Eternal Logos, David Patrick Harry coming on. So that's going to be fun.
Oh wow!
When are you going
I
live
ran
again?
into him
In real life?
Yeah, I didn't get to talk to him. I just seen him in passing. Some of the people at my parish did, but I found out, I didn't know at the time, he lives in Indiana as well. So we went to a men's conference in Indianapolis, and he was there. I was like walking into the icon shop, and I'm like, is that who I think it is? You know what I mean?
That's
So
funny.
yeah, that's pretty
Funny.
cool.
I'd say you get noticed a lot, like at bigger levels like that, like Andrew. I'd say he gets people coming up to him all the time.
Oh, I'm sure. That's why I was like, is Jim Bob or Andrew about to walk through the door here next? Exactly.
Yeah. It's weird.
What the hell?
It's sort of a small world. Like I had the farmer who rents the field out the back of me. He was setting magpie traps around the field, and I just saw. You see guys walking around the field. You have to go out check, see who it is, and see what's going on. Because sometimes it's problem, and you have to like shoo people off. So anyway, I went out checking who it was, and it was this farmer and his friend, and they were setting up the magpie traps. And then the friend just looks up at me and goes, "Oh, Baron Strawberry, how's it going?" I was like, what?
Right.
Because my channel's so small. And I was
Right.
like, I was absolutely shocked. And I was like, and then
Did interview
John Waters.
John Waters, yes.
That's what it was.
That's going to get you a lot of local notoriety.
Yeah.
Especially among farmers who don't tend to be the most
Right.
liberal of people.
That's what it was from. It was from the John Waters interviews, but it was.
See, I knew it. But yeah, I haven't been recognized by anyone yet, except on a person I know. Like watched my appearance on David Patrick Harry. So that must have been quite a. He thought, "Am I going mad? Is that the guy from the other side of the city, like talking with a British accent with an American about the Orthodox?" So that probably was a bit of a conundrum. But yeah, I'm not. I speak in English, obviously, so that's going to be the opposite of what happens when you interview John Waters. But yeah. Oh yes, I should mention. Tonight, it's going to be quite late for myself and Baron, but Andrew and Jim Bob are doing a 2-on-2 debate against Mormons on whether Joseph Smith was a true prophet.
And isn't Jay Dyer at 1:30 in the morning in Irish time, 2:30 your time, as well tonight?
Not sure.
I think he's debating. My wife's been telling me, Irene's been mentioning it, that Jay's debating at 1:30 in the morning. She's so much more based than me, she follows Jay and all. Just, but yeah, she's.
Yeah, I should be on Jay's channel in the next 2 weeks or so.
When are you going live on your own channel again? Sorry, that's what I was about to mention before I go.
Well, I thought yesterday or today, but seeing as how it got a bit hectic with debate prep with Andrew and Jim Bob, probably not tonight. Maybe tomorrow I do it. But I, have to prioritize work. I work for the Crucible, so
I'm never sure if I'm allowed to mention that out loud.
I asked, and I am. I'm not allowed to say who else works, but I can speak for myself. So yeah, that's the updates for other things that are happening. If anyone is interested, yeah.
Okay.
Is that your full-time job?
Yeah.
At this point, yeah.
That's awesome.
I know. I get to work from home. I don't have to leave my house anyway. I like basically just go to the gym. That's when I'm out of the house. And now I don't even have to go out for work. So
Right.
based.
Based.
Yeah. All right, guys. It was a fun one. Everybody watching, thanks for watching. There's still 8 people watching at the end, which is
the real ones.
The real ones.
Real ones. I tried to send you a super chat there. I just could not figure it out.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
we'll have to figure that one
When
out.
I'm watching the next
maybe it's
one,
not a great system. I don't know. I thought it would work. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Anyway, we'll start growing. We'll get Jim Bob on, and we'll get ourselves above the super chat threshold, and we'll start getting the regularity up, and the channel will start moving again, because it does. You do start getting.
Yeah, when you establish a presence and continuity, then the algorithm.
We just got to be regular, Posh. Fridays, 4:00 Irish time. Let's do
it. So yeah, let's hope we organize well.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for being on, Woodfloor Alchemist.
Hey, thank you for having me,
Pleasure
guys.
to talk to you.
God bless.
Okay. God bless you all.